welcome to Xena Warrior Podcast. My name is Vera, and I am joined, as always, by my two polymilial co-hosts, Katie.
Hello.
And Livy.
What's that word, Vera?
Multi-armed. Multi-limbed.
All the limbs.
Polymilia.
I'm glad you're, including all the limbs in that.
Yeah, all of them. Are you guys armed and ready to
Jokes.
talk about this episode? Do you guys need a hand with your notes?
Oh, no.
I'm just so disarmed, Vera, by all these puns.
Wow. Well, we have
First,
made it.
do no arm.
We have made it to 416 The Way. This one is infamous for being a bit controversial.
A bit.
And in fact, it begins with what you think is like another quote from the Xena Scrolls, because we're so used to that by now, right?
Because it happened once.
It happened
last
once.
week.
Right. And so you're like, oh, again, great, you know? But no, it is not that.
No.
It's a little bit of a fourth wall break there with
is.
what we see here. The subtitles were like Indian music playing, and then you have the Himalayas, and a disclaimer appears.
The disclaimer says, the producers of the following episode took liberties with Hindu deities and historical timelines, but their sole intent was to illustrate the beauty and power of the Hindu religion.
Huh.
Couple things to note here. One, historical timelines. I can't believe that Xena would like to inform us that sometimes they take liberties with historical timelines.
Whoa.
Shocking.
The gasp.
The second thing that I find quite striking about this disclaimer is that there is no apology in it.
No.
No,
It's like, we did it, okay?
we did do this.
We had a good heart, you guys, is basically the underlying message.
They mean no disrespect.
Yeah.
Right. So what happened? Like, what is this all about?
So this title card you would not have seen if you saw the first airing of the episode. This title card was for the re-air that happened later in the summer of 1999. And there was a whole string of events that led up to this title card and a PSA at the end, which you can watch on Hulu, that is very fascinating. And I think that, I was aware of this episode being very controversial, and I think that what we have found in our research is that the controversy surrounding the episode has very little to do with what makes the episode problematic or offensive in some instances. I would say at all.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's quite telling that a lot of the controversy, if you look at the timeline, it started happening before people had seen the episode.
Yeah.
And I would wonder how many of the people protesting were protesting because their organization told them something offensive had happened.
Yeah, and
how many people had seen this when they actually stormed the Universal Studio parking lot? What?
Right.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions kind of about who exactly had a problem with this and what their problem was.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, by saying that, I don't mean to say that, people were wrong to be offended. If you're offended, and you have every right to express that. But there is some underlying stuff that I was not aware of that we should mention, I think, right?
Yes.
So, even before the episode aired, Renpix got a letter from a man named Tustas Krishnadas, who was the press secretary of the World Vaishnava Association, basically had gotten, I don't know how, wind of this airing or this being in production. Maybe because they had consulted someone for the episode when they were writing the episode.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
How did
I thought maybe he went on Whoosh and saw
maybe went on Whoosh, maybe watched the show. I actually have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Xena fans knew that the internet art
it must have
was
just
gonna be
been
a thing.
they got wind via just the grapevine that this was happening, and immediately was concerned about the idea that the episode was going to feature Krishna and was concerned that it was going to represent things in a disrespectful manner, or just was kind of upset that it was happening at all.
Yeah, I remember the phrase that he used is including Krishna as a fictional character. And that's obviously a very subjective kind of decision to make.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's in an episode of Xena, so you could argue that the inclusion at all, whether it's respectful or disrespectful, by having him interacting with Xena, it's somehow implying something about his fictionalness. But I think that's just so complicated, because we've had, in Altered States, the voice of the Jewish God right there on screen.
Yes.
And what is that? Is that fictional? Like, it's one of those things where what constitutes fictional? Can you have a real living religion feature in a piece of art, and does that make that religion no longer real? I think that's a very weird kind of definition, that anything that appears in a fictional universe is fictional itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a sidebar, 1999, like, my association with religious, like, media protests is this is the same year that the Kevin Smith movie Dogma came out, which got the Catholic Church
starring Alanis.
As God.
Hello. She was like, boop. Anyway, which was in November, so Xena did it first in the year 1999.
Being controversial. Xena
of course, Dogma is much more a totally different beast, in the sense that, like, it really was kind of going after the institution.
It was quote unquote provocative. And I don't think the way is trying to be provocative.
No. And I think we all agree that, like, art should be able to do whatever, and people should be able to do whatever in response to it. Is that too broad a statement to make?
Perhaps.
Maybe not anything. Obviously there are lines, but
yeah, I mean, part of art is that it should, make you ask these questions. And I think the way is interesting, because it allows you to really engage with these ideas. Like, should Krishna be a character in Xena? And what does that mean for other gods who appear in Xena? Krishna's here appearing alongside Eli, who is quite clearly at this point being Jesus.
Very much so. And of course, there are many films, paintings, books, things that feature Jesus. And there are always people who are very upset by whatever, like, even just in doing something silly for this podcast, in which I was looking up lyrics from Jesus Christ Superstar. Like, the first hit I got was someone being like, you should never do this. You should never represent Jesus this way. So it's like, you're always going to come up against, people's beliefs in that way.
I think artists are allowed to believe things, and they're allowed to have their belief in their art, but their belief obviously isn't going to correspond to someone else's belief system. Yeah. I don't know very much about R.J. Stewart's like personal or religious beliefs, but we've seen a lot of his philosophical bent. He's clearly someone, as a writer, who's so concerned with, like, the right way to live and the right way to think. And I think it's no surprise that he would finally kind of jump into a living religion in that discussion.
So let's, anyway, get back to why the controversy is interesting and perhaps not what you think. So then the episode aired, and the same person who had complained previously, having not seen it, has now seen it. And it does seem to be like there were two statements that were made in response to the episode. Number one being, Krishna is in this and I don't like this. Number two, and I think the most important thing to note here from this group that's protesting, is that Krishna helps Xena save Gabrielle, and he states pretty unequivocally that he thinks the show is saying that they are lesbians and that Krishna would not do this. So let me read a little bit from, there's this article called Gender Norms and Hindu Authority in the Global Media Debate on Representing the Hindu God Krishna in Xena Warrior Princess. That is really great if you can get your hands on it. That goes through the whole controversy and the episode. And to just go a little bit into the first point that he made, says that in his point of view, fictionalizing Krishna and the way this supposedly degrades or cheapens and trivializes the deity continue to be the main point of contention, like in the overarching debate in the media. But on his second point, he goes, "It makes it appear that Lord Krishna and Vedic religion approves of and gives its blessing to homosexual relationships, which is false. Xena increasingly tries to link itself with spirituality and yoga, but simultaneously promotes a lesbian relationship between the lead characters. This is an absolute outrage, since Vedic scriptures, the scripture of yoga, reject homosexuality as a perversion." Goodbye to this guy. Like, fuck this, really.
Yeah.
I think that wasn't part of the debate in the media, just kind of because then it also creates a conundrum for Universal as well, and
Because they can't
Renpix.
defend the show as a piece of
Yeah.
gay art.
Yes, and everything is just terrible.com. So the whole thing more focused on the idea of representing Krishna.
And that's ostensibly why they pulled the episode.
Yeah, so the episode...
Why they didn't defend the episode.
Exactly. So the episode is pulled immediately, and then there goes through this like few months of pushback from a massive campaign from Xena fans online with like a petition that, you know, is decrying censorship, and that like giant petition gets delivered to Universal. Rob releases a bunch of statements, you know, saying that they like, you know, didn't mean any offense and all sorts of things like that. And that if they ever do re-air it, they're going to like go get a consult with someone to like see what would need to be fixed. They do end up doing this. The stuff that they cut out is like one scene of Xena headbutting Hanuman or something.
Yeah, I mean, 2 seconds of footage from the fight with Hanuman.
Yeah, and then it gets re-aired with the title card and with the PSA at the end of the guy who was the consult, and everyone looks very sad.
Yeah,
in the PSA.
I was like, it really looks like they have a gun to their head.
They
for
really
that
do.
PSA.
They really do. So anyway, this episode kind of comes packaged already with this massive problematic gift wrap. But I think that the actual things that maybe are the things that the episode gets wrong are not part of the big controversy.
So how about this, to summarize, this episode is problematic. The controversy in response to this episode was in itself problematic.
Yes. And overblown.
And overblown, and clearly Rob, I think, wanted to be able to respond to it in all honesty at the time, and it seems like he wasn't really allowed to do that for a variety of reasons. I think it's quite significant that we have access to all of these letters.
Yeah.
That's from Rob. Rob leaked them to the public because I think he wanted people to know that the orchestrator of this controversy was coming to it from a place of homophobia.
Yeah.
And that needed to be known. That's a really important aspect of the controversy. And even though I do think the episode is racist,
yes,
and obviously in various ways takes artistic liberties with a living religion, and that's a very complicated situation.
Absolutely. It's not the first or last thing to ever do that.
In the end, I feel like it's a very hateful statement to
yes.
say that
yes.
the god Krishna
yes.
wouldn't help lesbians.
Yes, it's awful.
That upsets me, and I don't worship Krishna, and that upsets me.
Right.
So I can't imagine how someone who does worship Krishna and happens to like gay and lesbian people, or happens to be gay, lesbian, like what is your reaction to that?
There's also like, what is one person or a group speaking for a massive religion or way of life, like, or, you know, even within, like, you know, like the dogma protests, like, you know, those groups that are very conservative are not representing everyone. So you can't just look to one person saying this is offensive and say that it's offensive to an entire, like, billions of people. It's just impossible.
Yeah, and Hinduism is such, in the same way that Christianity has so many sects, so many different ways of believing. Like, Hinduism has even more because it's so much older.
Yeah.
So even this episode, like the way that it kind of structures its, yes, the way in which the way structure, talks about the Godhead and this kind of religious pantheon is, not necessarily even the main way that Hindus look at this. Like, I think it's such a complicated business that I'm just going to keep saying.
We are certainly not going to solve this problem.
Xena Warrior Podcast status message is it's complicated right now.
Yeah, so, like, I think that, and when you look at fandom now, like, as we go into talking about this episode specifically and this whole arc, it's very, very often pointed to as, like, the biggest, most problematic thing that this show has ever done, the whole arc. If you go on Tumblr, you get the extreme discourse where it's like, don't ever talk to me about this episode in any kind of positive manner. This is racist as fuck. Like, this is the worst thing you've ever seen. The end. I think that is a little bit unproductive as a means of criticism. Especially, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, you have to be able to, like, contextualize art. You have to be able to look at things a little bit more critically than just, let's throw this out the window and burn it. That's terrible.
I mean, I hate any form of criticism that takes the form, don't talk about this.
Yes.
Because the whole point of art is to talk about it. Like, shutting down conversation is, I think, absolutely counterproductive.
Yeah, and it's like a kid, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like, this episode, I think, has a lot of beautiful stuff in it. Really, really beautiful stuff. And surprise, we all really like it.
This is my favorite episode of the Indian arc.
I thought you said it was Paradise Found, which is like the...
That was the first one before we went
I know it's not traditionally...
I don't count it as part of the Indie arc, but if you count it...
It's true, because it's not... A lot of... When you look at it, it's usually, like, mentioned as, like, a prologue to the India arc.
Yeah.
Even though it kind of...
It's part of it.
It's beginning to set it up. Yeah, I mean, they're on their way. No, I mean, obviously, I think Paradise Found is a superior episode, but I think the way is really amazing in so many ways.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Let's go.
All right, cool. So, as mentioned, 416 The Way, and I guess drinking game, guys. Anytime The Way is mentioned, drink.
I got vodka this time.
All
I
right.
thought I needed something like else.
This one is written by R.J. Stewart and directed by John Fawcett, a new name.
This is a new name for Xena. He's going to go on to direct some other big episodes in the later part of the show. You may know him as the director of Ginger Snaps.
Yes!
Yay! An amazing
movie. He also has directed many, many, many episodes of Orphan Black and a few big Spartacus episodes. He's very talented, and this is a really tricky assignment for a director, and I think he does an amazing job.
Right. I'm really glad that finally the mystery is solved as to why Lucy Lawless appears as a voice on the intercom in Ginger Snaps.
Principal or something.
And I think Ginger Snaps was probably shot in 99 as well. It came out in 2000, so almost simultaneous with this.
And then, interestingly enough, the actor who plays Hanuman, Jake McKinnon, his whole thing is like he plays a lot of creatures and whatnot. But he was like, I think, one of the wolves in Ginger Snaps 2, which was not directed by John Fawcett, but it is still part of the whole thing.
Yeah, and he's also done a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
He's a big name still, Jake McKinnon.
He's amazing. I loved Hanuman. Well, okay, so The Way. After our disclaimer, the actual episode begins.
I did want want to take a note, we should tell people what the opening of the episode was before.
Oh,
this
sure,
disclaimer.
yeah.
I think it's kind of cool. It was a montage where first you saw the Himalayas, the mountain shot that's there as the background for our disclaimer. And then you saw a bunch of icicles melting.
Okay.
And the little melting drops off the icicles become the river.
Okay.
So you're sort of seeing the source of the river.
That's
that
cool.
Gabrielle
So
is talking
the
about.
magical mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting that it starts with the Himalayas, which we already know based on Paradise Found, our prologue to the India arc, that it's a very mystical mountains. I thought it was interesting to see like that shot, even with the disclaimer behind it, that to me, like, it just reminds me of Mount Olympus.
The battle for Mount Olympus.
No, I don't want to be reminded of that ever again.
I think that is a excellent thing to mention, as there is a sort of equivalent somewhat that we could make with Mount Meru, which is the Mount Olympus of the area, I suppose. Described here as a huge sacred golden mountain in the center of the universe, which supports the heavens and passes through the center of the earth. The supreme gods Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, and the Devas reside on top of the mountain.
Cool,
Very
so it really
similar.
is similar. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In the Himalayas.
Every
Yeah.
god needs a house.
They're always in the mountains.
And mountains seem like a pretty good place to have a house.
So all the snow melts into the rivers, and this episode actually begins with all this shots of waterfalls, and then they go into the rivers, and we have a lot of B-roll of rivers.
Yeah.
Yes, Katie, what's so funny about rivers?
I love the beginning of this episode. Gabrielle, it just starts with Gabrielle going, I love rivers.
She's never seen a river before, okay?
Oh my gosh.
If Najara were here, she'd be like, I love them too. Tell me more about rivers, Gabs. Oh, look, there's some swans on that river.
I love her so much.
So, yeah, Gabrielle waxes poetically about rivers. Xena's like, they're all right if you don't have to cross them. And then talks about how...
She's always practical.
yeah,
Yeah,
she's
this
very
is actually very
practical.
important
Yeah.
bookend to the episode.
Of course, absolutely. I did love that all the B-roll shows the people of India bathing in, I assume that's the Ganges.
Right.
And they do everything in that river,
Yeah.
including
Burying.
burial practices.
Yeah.
So
It's sacred water.
Yeah. So I really, really loved seeing that. And yeah, Gabrielle really is into rivers here.
There's a certain inevitability to a river. Nothing stops it from finding its
Way! But then Xena mentions, what about beavers?
It's just like, have you ever heard of dams? Like, it's so Gabs and so Xena. And
Is
this
Xena's mention of beaver meant to be some innuendo?
Why not? They've done it before. Anyway, the dialogue here becomes extraordinarily overt in a very Xena-esque way that I find truly delightful.
Yeah, and I loved Xena. I mean, I really felt like Xena just really enjoyed kind of putting a stop to Gabrielle's waxing poetically about rivers. And then Gabrielle gets a little pissed about
Yeah.
that.
Why do you do that? Stop shooting down my philosophical stuff. Like, just that she's, like, having this, like, cognizant moment of being like, I am on my bullshit right now. It's not bullshit. But that's the, like, overarching thing. Where she's like, I'm doing my stuff. Why are you being this way? I love it.
I love that she calls it stuff. In a way, I feel like that's her kind of saying, like, I mean, not that it's bullshit, but
No, it's not.
It's her stuff.
I was using a phrase.
But just, you know,
it's
a certain
absolutely not.
wishy-washiness, like, to that language that I think is telling that she's not, like, it's my path. She's like, it's my philosophical stuff. I think it portrays a certain insecurity.
We have here again, Gabrielle, you know, perpetual seeker, gonna become, like, again, susceptible to stuff as per usual. So it's good that she's kind of
Fighting
aware.
back. Yeah. And this is so very them. I saw a lot of fans who were mostly angry, actually, with Gabrielle for her reaction here, that felt she was being a bit self-righteous and just sort of the fact that she shuts Xena down for this kind of playful joke, they were like, oh my god, don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, she's
this is serious stuff.
Yeah. She's having a time right now, you
Yeah.
know? Like, she doesn't want the jokes. She wants a serious conversation about ways and whatnot.
And even though this is Xena's way of looking at things, sometimes, you know, Xena does have to stand back and respect Gabrielle for what she's going through. And I think that kind of ambiguity here, like, I don't think either character is right or wrong here, which I always love scenes like
exactly.
that.
And this is, you reminded me, people have had, I don't want to, I broadly say people, some fans, like, in posts and such, have had, like, these kind of similar issue with Gabrielle for a long time, and I think that we're in the stretch, and especially at the end of this episode and the rest of the season, where it becomes, like, peak for people to really, really hate her and her stance and her righteousness, I suppose, would be the word. I am totally opposed to that opinion.
I think it isn't fair. You know, it's
not
such
fair.
a necessary part of Gabrielle's growth. It's not the end point. I can kind of understand a fan, like, watching this in real time and seeing this behavior and being like, Gabrielle, grow up, because she is going to grow up.
Well,
so
I think,
she
again,
listens to you.
Again, I've
But
said
they
this
don't
before,
know that yet.
and I'll say it again, like, a lot of it just boils down to the fact that we are watching an action-adventure show, and you're always going to butt up against some problems when you're talking about non-violence.
I also think it's interesting because I think a lot of fans tend to take Xena's side in this debate. And I think part of that is, you're watching the action-adventure show. She's the action hero. Whenever you have anybody kind of challenging that perspective, which is what Gabrielle's doing with her spiritual quest. She's saying, I'm not fulfilled by action heroics in a way that's a challenge to the audience.
But y'all, that's why this show is amazing.
Yeah.
Also, Xena's bangs are gone. They are not here. No bangs.
The magic of hair styling. Where'd they go?
They left this episode. They were not contractually obligated to be in this episode.
I love her hair in this episode.
It is so great, I have to say. I love it. Is it weird? It's without the bangs, you can see her little brow furrow extra way.
It's really nice to see the brow acting, and it's very apparent right in this scene when Gabrielle says, you know, why do you do this? And she kind of she furrows in this way where she doesn't know how to answer that.
No, it's
She's
really
just like,
sweet.
That's who I am.
And then I really, really, really like the continuity between the lines and this next bit of conversation, because Xena says that she really actually has been thinking a lot about these topics because they literally experienced reincarnation and her future life.
Yeah.
And I think that would fuck you up.
Yeah, big time. She is just not correct right now in her mind place.
This is one of the ideas that I was most fascinated by in Between the Lines, which was, this idea that Xena was going to be reborn as a pacifist, and what that means for her as a character. It's something that I don't think Between the Lines itself really engaged with. So I'm really glad that idea gets to come up here in a big way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was actually a quote from Rob where he was like, Gabrielle needed an entire season to figure herself out or whatever. We gave Xena one episode.
What? The whole show wasn't her figuring herself out?
No.
Rob.
I also saw some fans getting a little annoyed that Xena gets to react to this revelation about what her future life will be like. And Gabrielle doesn't get the equivalent. Gabrielle sees that in her future life she will be a warrior, and yet here she is, trying to
be a pacifist.
Good point.
So
Interesting.
it doesn't bother her at all, apparently.
Another thing that this is a sidebar to always, I feel, have as an undercurrent for this program, which I feel is its greatest strength and greatest weakness, is that it's messy as fuck.
But life is messy as fuck.
Exactly.
So I like these inconsistencies. Maybe for Gabrielle, she sees that future life and says, well, that's a future life. That's not me. And that's just her own reaction to it. Whereas Xena sees that and says, that's me? I'm going to become that? She can't fathom it.
But he was nice, Shakti was super awesome awesome still.
Yeah.
He like
He was
could fight.
super hot. He was
Yeah,
such a
she
good
was. She
home
was
baker.
great. She was like, great. I'm down for that.
There's always, maybe she's like not actively thinking about it because she's very caught up in you know, her stuff right now, but we always know, and it's been the thing from the beginning, and in One Against an Army and things that just come out of her mouth when she's in a feverish state is that she wants to be Xena.
Yeah.
Right, and also the fact that she is kind of learning to be a warrior still. It's not like she is a warrior. For Xena, who is just through and through, like, it's all she is, it's harder for her to kind of, like, deprogram her mind to be like, I'm going to be this, like, lady who doesn't even pick up
So
a sword.
different.
Like, it's so
Yeah.
kind of inconceivable for her.
Yeah, I can see how it would be more
Yeah.
of an identity crisis.
Right, yeah. I mean, well, Gabrielle's like, oh, cool, I'm going to finally learn to be an awesome warrior who can bake.
This is also interesting in that Gabrielle's reaction to Xena having this crisis is her kind of encouraging her, saying, like, maybe being a warrior isn't the right karma for you. We've already talked about how this show misuses the word karma. And she says, maybe you should look to peace. I thought this was really interesting. Like, as we just said, little Gabs in Podadia, who so looked up to Xena as a warrior, is now saying, well, maybe you aren't supposed to be a warrior. I was
Jeez
like,
Louise.
whoa, Gabs.
Yeah.
Like,
This made
that's
me
big.
sidebar again, but did you guys know in the Xena Warrior Princess PlayStation game, part of controlling Xena is like adding to her karma?
Oh my god.
It's like a little bar that you
Karma
can
bar.
use. Like some kind of thing like that where it's
So
like
doing
you
good
do
deeds.
stuff.
Well,
And
that's
I don't know
very-
how it works specifically, but I was like, I wonder why this didn't come up in any people weren't paying attention to the video game, I suppose. But
really awesome that there was a video game.
Seems
I
pretty-
didn't know about this.
interesting.
You know what? I was looking up the actor who plays Krishna,
Yeah, he's in it.
and he's a voice in the video game.
That's crazy, yeah.
So Krishna must be in that video game. How does that work?
Well, maybe he was in
Anybody
another
played it?
voice.
Yeah.
What is playing this game like? Let us know.
Yeah, gosh. I've only played the X-Files computer game.
Wow.
All right, so Xena is kind of holding this staff while this whole conversation is happening. It's actually a spear of some sort. They're on a bank of a river.
I think it's for fishing.
Right, exactly. So you find out it is for fishing after she says, maybe violence isn't the answer to anything.
Oh.
And then violently stabs at a fish
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
river.
she said that line for the joke.
Yeah.
I don't think she would ever quite believe that.
She was
Yeah.
being cheeky.
So she stabs this fish and kind of flops it over to the bank.
It's
and
an eel.
Oh, it's an eel? Oh, great. And surprise!
Why? What do you got against eels?
Surprise, it's a dude! It's not an eel at all.
I love the simplicity of this effect. You just cut from the eel like a match cut. Like
Yeah.
the movement of the eel, she shoots it through the air, it hits the ground, cut. It's a dude.
Yeah, it's great. He has a demon face.
And they have like vocally. What have they done to their voices?
Auto-tune.
Yeah.
They've auto-tuned
They have
him.
demon voice.
Yeah, these guys are, well, he's a demon, and he's been speared, and Xena starts questioning him because he's been following them. Apparently, she knew this, like, eel was swimming by.
Her spidey sense was
Yeah.
going off.
And he goes, we were ordered to stop you from reaching the Avatar. And she's like, who's we? He has 4 little beetles in his palm, and he kind of blows some magic dust on them.
Yep.
And the 4 beetles become 4 dude demons!
Like-
I
they do.
think they like fly through the air. Like the one that hits Gabs in the arm. I didn't like that. She had a beetle on her arm.
Oh, she like flicks. Yeah.
Flick it off. And then when they hit the dirt, they kind of turn into dudes.
Yeah.
Which was maybe a little Hercules, but
I loved it. Hercules
like
would
the
never
effect.
did anything this
I
awesome.
actually have one of my things for this episode and why it has a feel that is slightly off kilter maybe from the Xena that you're used to is because it has like Hercules elements in it where I think Hercules does more like creatures and,
Yeah.
and stuff
Magic,
like that
yeah.
and magic than this show does,
Right.
which yeah.
These dudes, like, I might notice that there was very Power Rangers, which previously we used as Hercules, kind of.
No judgment, Power Rangers are amazing.
But I do think this is like a really impressive directing moment for John Fawcett because this could have been really campy.
Right.
And I feel like the shot choice and the simplicity of these transformation effects, just cutting from the ground to the demon being there. There's something so matter of fact about it. Like there's no like flashes of lights or,
Right.
dippy sound effects. Like it's just like a demon's here. And I feel like that takes it to this place where it's just, this is real, like, which
Right.
I think is a really smart way of introducing
Yeah.
this stuff. And, like, I do think what's so amazing about the way is that it's really building a world. And you're right, it could be a Hercules world where, like, there's magic. But here it's just saying, like, this stuff is real. You spear an eel in the river, but it's a demon.
Right. Last time we sort of had Hercules-esque episodes was like way back in season 1, and when Power Rangers came up at that time too. But this all felt just
Weren't
so.
those
I would say
Bugmen?
it's a little less.
No, they were
Bugmen.
like weird bird dudes.
No, I don't
No?
remember.
It's more
Bird
about, like,
bug, they hatch from
characters.
eggs.
Yeah, it was Marcus
Because
episode.
it's not like this show doesn't do like magic. Obviously, like the Olympian gods, there's many episodes like with magic. There's just like a
Jayhawk,
certain
yeah.
feel
Yeah.
to this one that is, This fight sequence is long.
Great, you didn't have to take many notes during it, did you?
They poof like vampires in Buffy.
Right. Yeah. This whole thing is like a little bit Buffy, like even
There's, like, dialogue.
with dialogue that's happening.
Yeah, the final piece of dialogue
Yeah.
is straight up Buffy.
So Xena fights 3 of these guys, and Gabrielle takes on 1. You mentioned that when they are killed, they poof into dust.
Xena's fighting this one guy. She kind of like gets him against a tree and then raises her sword to kill him and just like freezes. She just
Right.
like isn't sure whether to do it. Then she gets distracted by Gabs, who like has a guy sneaking up on her, and the guy who's fighting Xena like slashes her in that one shoulder.
Oh my god, that
always
one.
gets slashed.
Yeah.
It's like
gosh.
the same exact mark.
It's always in that one
It's a
spot.
sexy mark.
Yeah. And then she is very weirded out by that. Of course, disposes him, and the initial guy with the spear is left. So she goes back to questioning him as she was before.
He explains who sent him. Indrajit, the king of demons, the prince of darkness. And Xena's like, I get it. He's a bad guy.
You forgot the master of horror and the mother of dragons.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was the very Buffy line.
that's the
And
Buffy
even
line.
the stomping on the bug.
You're right.
too.
Yeah.
And she sees the bug and stuff's on it. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of, they've gone to the trouble of making these guys scary and impressive. And Indrajit, it's so overblown, it's pompous. So this is very Buffy, I think, to undercut
They're
your
going to
villain.
reference Buffy next week, so.
That's right,
Oh,
So it makes sense
man.
that suddenly you have this very Buffy-esque bit of dialogue.
Yeah, so now I don't know what they were going to be doing, right, with their, vacation day here, but now they have to go find this avatar.
Yeah,
like, that
before
was
Indrajit
so
gets to
not what was on
That's
their
how it
docket.
works. That's how this show
Yeah,
works.
you never find out what it is Xena and Gabs would have done if they
Yeah.
hadn't been stopped by a thing. I mean, I guess
Right.
that's what a day in the life is about.
Even there they get
Right,
stopped
stopped
by
by
a thing.
multiple things.
that's just their life.
So we have a campfire scene. We haven't had one of these in a
Yay.
long time.
That's really true.
Yeah, they don't do campfires, and I guess they stay at hotels in India, Airbnb. So Xena is sitting there, and Gabrielle is tending to her wound.
Yay.
Always fun.
So yeah, well, her wound, she got one.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah. Xena also, by the way, has a very good sitting.
Oh yeah.
It's good. So Gabrielle then proceeds to explain Avatar.
Well, Xena, Avatar was a film made by James Cameron, and now he's making many, many more.
An avatar is a deity in human form, usually destined to save humanity from a great evil, aka James Cameron.
Oh boy. No.
I put a coin in.
Oy. That's a spot on definition, it seems.
Yeah.
That seems correct.
For Hinduism, we should say.
Yes.
Hindu idea of an avatar.
Xena admits that she is troubled by her reaction in the fight.
This is so great, this bit. The way she talks about her future. She's very stressed out. Obviously, she's bugging out because she got
Cut?
distracted.
Yeah.
She got cut, is talking about how in battle you can't be thinking that about,
The fact that you're going to be
the
mother
fact
of
that-
peace in
yeah,
your next
cannot
life, you can't be thinking about that.
You have
Yeah.
to just go for the kill if it's there. And says, if I already earned that karma to be the mother of peace, can I still mess it up? Maybe I'm supposed to change the way that I'm living this life here and now, but either way, a warrior cannot ask themselves these questions in the heat of battle. When the kill is there, you have to take it. If I can't do that, I can't be a warrior anymore.
Cue credits.
Oh, man.
Whoa.
That's a lot.
Because it's called Xena Warrior Princess. Like, what's the show if she's not a warrior anymore? It's just so moving hearing her talk about this. Like, being shown that future for herself and then being worried about her actions here as somehow being able to screw up something amazing because she doesn't trust herself to get it right.
I think it's very interesting considering her quest for redemption, that in a way she's been shown that her quest will end with redemption. And that's actually undermining the quest in the here and now. She's like, wait, I'm going to get a prize for this?
Like, oh no,
I was just doing it for the sake of doing it before, and now I realize there's sort of higher stakes than that, and I don't know how to behave. I don't know how, she's such a pragmatic person. I feel like when something, she lives in that here and now all the time. So the idea of having a future, any kind of future, is actually a big stumbling block for her.
Yeah, I thought Gabrielle's face in that moment was really funny.
She doesn't know what to do.
She made a funny face.
She just kind of like, okay, going back to bandaging your wound. Apparently there's an outtake where after Lucy says that last line, if I can't do that, I can't be a warrior anymore, she like leans into Renee and says, and this show will be over.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about Gabrielle's look this episode.
Oh, her costume.
We
her
actually
new
see
costume,
the hair.
Her new
This
look
is
is
the
fully,
actual hair.
Yeah, the actual hair is
fully
there.
there. Yeah, I mean, it's immediately getting better.
It's
immediately
getting
like
better.
It's hair.
Yeah, already better than the
There.
wig. Yeah.
It's still not appropriate
I
for
honestly
the
really
time
hate
period.
the earrings.
She has the earrings.
The hair, but the earrings to me age it somehow.
It's just
Big
gotta
time.
get a little longer and she'll be good to go.
She's got the bindi too.
yeah.
And she also
Big
has
for
the
the
henna,
henna.
but Xena does not have her henna from the previous episode.
No. She's looking problematic.
It's a lot. It's a lot going on with our friend Gabs right now.
All right, so the next morning, Xena and Gabs, they show up, and there's a gathering of people. I love Xena's, what's the attraction?
Well, remember Davy where there were so many attractions?
Yeah, it's true. And the guy's like, oh, they're showing Avatar. And so
goodness, they
she's
are.
like, yeah. She's like, holy shit, that's exactly what we're trying to see. And the Avatar turns out to be Eli. Hey, Eli, what's
He
up?
turns around with this, like, really
It's
dramatic...
my favorite thing.
slow-mo and a whoosh sound
It
effect.
is so funny.
But not like regular whoosh, like super whoosh.
Holy whoosh.
Holy whoosh.
Holy whoosh.
So a guy comes up to Eli he's holding a small girl in his hands, and it's a father. And at first I was like, oh, I don't really like this guy's acting, but then I got really into it. I thought that because he wasn't like, oh my God, Eli, you have to heal her. He was like very just like sad and calm about it. His daughter is in a coma, and gosh, Eli kind of reluctantly has to do this.
He's so reluctant.
Yeah.
Like, he puts up such a stink about it.
Yeah.
Like, I like that part where he asks him, have you treated her with the necessary herbs?
Yeah.
It felt so, like, American healthcare. Like, it's your responsibility to get better. What should I do?
But he takes her, and we have a great kind of moment with this beautiful music of his magic at work. He heals her.
She's so fucking cute.
So
And I love the way he holds her, sort of like
Yeah.
a baby. He really cradles her in his arms. It is this beautiful shot, and I like that it's a little soft focus. There's a lot of this technique in this episode where the light just gets so soft and pretty, and this sort of heavenly quality to it.
Yeah. So all the Indian onlookers, they drop to their knees and kind of start worshiping him. And you see that the only people standing upright are Xena and Gabrielle. So he's like, oh, hey, guys. Bye. And then he turns around and leaves.
Well, I like it. Xena kind of smiles at him like she's proud. She's
Yeah,
like,
she's
I
like, come
believed
on,
in you.
Eli.
Yeah, she was
She
totally
knows,
rooting
she's
for
seen
him.
it. She's seen
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You're doing what it was I knew you could do. And he's like, okay, bye.
I don't know if we should keep a running list of all the Mesa moments here.
Oh, yeah.
We've just talked about this already. Very white savior arc for Eli in India.
Should we talk again? We kind of touched on this in the end of our episode about Devi, but Jesus in India being a thing.
Yes. I mean, it's very clear that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, 100% clear that that's what they're doing.
Guys, James
Yes.
Cameron, JC.
Blasphemy.
Avatar!
Blasphemy.
Thumbs down.
He truly,
Coin for you,
he
Vera.
truly is the Avatar.
But yeah, this idea is very part of like the Esoterica movement. You know, this idea of Jesus going to India and being influenced by Hinduism and taking that back with him. There are various. I remember there's a Russian dude who was passing himself off as an aristocrat when he was not an aristocrat, and he claimed to have stayed in a Tibetan monastery, and the monks took out some parchment that had the story of Jesus in India written on it.
Whoa.
And he took that back to Russia and was like a big deal for a while. But people got really angry at him and basically proved he'd made all of this up by visiting the monastery and being like, hey, monks, can we see that parchment? And they were like, what?
Well, didn't he take it?
No, that's true. Did not take it. There was no parchment. But this became a very... I think as Eastern traditions came to the West, this became a big idea for people, is that, you know, how do these religions meet each other? How do you account for the resonances that exist across different religions? So it's kind of a provocative idea to have your Jesus figure introduced in India.
Yeah.
They wanted to originally call him Isa, which is the Islamic name for Jesus. And then they decided that was maybe going a little too far, and they dialed it back to Eli, which is Hebrew.
Right, we mentioned that in Davy.
Yeah, so that's our Davy news. The other thing that I feel like we should talk about in regards to Eli is the original casting for him.
Right. Yes.
Gosh,
Yes.
how could we forget this ridiculous piece of information?
So Rob really wanted to cast David Blaine.
I mean...
That's insanity. Like, I mean, he was serious. Like he pursued
They
this
offered
guy.
him apparently a lot of money, and David Blaine was just like, no, I'm not an actor. Stop.
Leave
Stop.
me alone,
Stop.
Rob. Don't like fish.
And apparently Rob was very resistant to Timothy Omenson. It's
Right.
just, I forget the exact words, but he said something like, that just wasn't what I was envisioning. And I'm not sure exactly what Rob means by that.
He
but
was envisioning David Blaine doing illusions.
I feel like he didn't want someone who just read as white. He wanted a non-white Jesus. Debatable whether David Blaine would really qualify, but...
I think he was really into the first episode with Eli where Jesus was a magician.
Doing the magician.
And that's it. That's as far as he saw this character go.
David Blaine is actually a very problematic person, and we're glad he is not Eli.
Right.
And Timothy is wonderful.
Eli turns out to be quite a major character with a lot of acting to do. So we're very happy it's
There's a lot
not
of acting to do.
David Blaine.
And it's true. I mean, I'm generally against stunt casting.
Oh, I hate
Yeah.
it.
So,
Hate it.
yeah, especially for a major character
Yeah.
who's meant to be this religious figure. I mean, this is, would require more than Alanis had to do.
How dare you?
Like, stunt casting has its place, but no, I think you really did need somebody who could, like, portray the arc of this character.
Right.
Because he changes so drastically, even between Davy and the way.
Here, he's a totally different guy. You could see that he has changed big time already. And I think that Timothy does a really good job in this episode. Mm-hmm. So he leaves, and Xena and Gabrielle follow him. They catch up to him on the road.
I love this. It's like, what's the matter with you? Wait up.
She's like, so you really are the Avatar? And he's just kind of like, yes.
Right,
And
yeah.
Gaz is like, how wonderful.
I
She's
know.
really funny. She like that's like a great thing to her. That's, you know, like, congratulations on your news that you are God.
Right. He's a little bit, dour about that because he does not like kind of seeing everyone's pain all the time.
It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And, you know, he can't respond to every single request. It's a bit like, you know, why doesn't Superman save everybody in Metropolis? He just can't. So he has this power, but he knows that he can't use it all the time, you know, and people, what does he say? People suffer so it breaks my heart, and they look to me for salvation. The scariest part is that he now knows the truth. And Gabs is like, the truth? And he's like, no, the truth.
The truth.
I love that he's like,
T.
Gabrielle, my powers allow me to discern that you are not capitalizing the truth.
A lot of the shots on her in this scene were out of focus.
Oh, interesting.
I was a little bummed out
Why?
about that. It's been a while since we had such blatant out of focus
I don't know,
shots.
is this meant to be the soft focus of spiritual moments where you're just like, the world's a little hazy?
No.
Okay.
So let's say it is.
Okay, sure, yeah, absolutely.
So what is the truth?
Well, they talk about that later.
Oh, that's true. That's coming up. All right. Put a pin in it.
Xena senses that something is watching them, so...
Weird whispers in the trees.
yeah, it's like, not human. And she warns Eli about Indrajit. But Eli totally knows about him, and he's like, whatever, shrug emoji.
Yeah, if he comes, he comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very much all about the nonviolence. When you first run into him, I think, like, you overhear him being like, you have to cast all hate and violence from your heart. So he's very...
We have a clue that what the truth will be and why it scares him so much.
Pacifist mood.
So Eli does not want Xena and Gabrielle traveling with him. He's really not into the idea of anybody, like, fighting for him.
Uh-huh.
And he's busy trying to get his ship to go home. So it's interesting that he's preaching, he's healing, but he doesn't seem to be trying to start something here.
Right.
He's not trying to gain disciples.
Yeah, he's trying to leave.
He's not trying to create a movement. He's just trying to GTFO.
Yeah.
Right.
Xena makes a nonviolence joke at him because he can't stop them.
Yeah.
So they follow him anyway.
So then this staging is quite shocking.
Yeah, because we have nighttime right now, and boy, there's some sleeping arrangement that's surprising.
Right?
Yeah.
How did they decide on this?
Yeah, we got Eli and Gabs in the same bedroll, and Xena's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Eyebrow raised.
I know. Oh no. I guess boyfriend of the week is back.
Yeah. Boyfriend of the
I mean, he fits the bill so perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
this
big
is
time.
peak.
And
Yeah.
I forgot to say that, like, you know, when he was talking to Gabs, like, the sun was reflecting off his hair. Like, there was already just so, like, yeah, he's definitely one of Gabrielle's types. So there are these handheld shots kind of creeping through the bushes
Handheld,
towards
gonna be
Eli.
scary.
We're like, oh no, someone's, you know, probably Indrajit is here.
Yeah, creeper POV.
Creeping right up on Eli, and he wakes up going like, whoa.
This is my favorite
Yeah.
because this is the introduction of Hanuman, who is a monkey god, and they both make faces at each other that are like the like scream face emoji, where they're just like what? They wake each other up, or well, he wakes Eli up, I should say.
And then Xena just like shoots out of the trees and attacks Hanuman.
She just starts beating the shit out of him, which I think was a little excessive.
Maybe a little excessive. Just punches him a whole bunch of times, doesn't ask who he is or what he's there for.
Well, he easily kind of picks her up.
Yeah, that was fun that he just kind of takes her by the
Yeah.
arms and holds her above the ground.
And she's
super
kinda,
strong.
yeah, she's like struggling there and like, oh my god, oh no.
This is where the headbutt would have been. In
Oh,
this
okay.
struggling, like-
Okay, how did that change?
I don't know. It's somehow a disrespectful headbutt.
Oh boy.
So sweet. Hanuman goes, please don't hurt me.
Hanuman is from the Ramayana. He'll go and explain this in more detail shortly.
Well, he's nice. That's what we know right now. He is not a bad
No,
demon.
I feel like as soon as he opens his mouth, you're like, oh, this is a nice dude.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Really sweet voice.
Yeah.
Sweet manner.
Can I just like go out on a limb and say like this is not something that we would expect to see on Xena?
Yeah.
Like, which is kind of what I mean. Like, here is a man in full monkey costume makeup. He looks really good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
But this is
good
like
prosthetic.
it's like a creature. Like we don't. I was just trying to like rack my brain as to
Centaurs.
Well,
Yeah, centaurs.
centaurs. You're right.
They are half man, half horse, all right.
This dude's all monkey.
Yeah, it's true. So that's different, I guess. You're right that it's centaurs.
That's what I think makes this work, is that it presents as very matter of fact. He
Yep.
isn't surprised to have
Everything's real here.
this monkey talking to her. Like,
Yeah.
it's a reasonable thing for her as a Greek woman who has met centaurs to experience. So she's just kind of like, why were you creeping on us, monkey?
Yeah. He just wanted to look really close at the avatar.
Yeah. And I also want to point out, this is kind of like not super relevant to the episode at hand, but just generally with the show and its relationship with like Chinese cinema, that Hanuman is related to the Monkey King, which is made popular in Journey to the West.
Which is a big Buddhist text.
Yeah,
right?
which was like written in the 16th century, 15th century, I don't know. But for our purposes here, just that like there's so many famous, I think, Chinese films that feature this character, Sun Wukong, and I think that like definitely Rob and Co would have seen a lot of them. For sure.
Yeah.
And we know that they were quite consciously also referencing Planet of the Apes.
Oh,
because
sure.
The original disclaimer for this episode had a Planet of the Apes reference. So I think they must have based the makeup in part.
Yeah.
on
Oh,
those
totally.
movies.
Totally can see that. You know, your mentioning of the disclaimer reminds me that, like, I came across a few of the, like, disclaimers that they did when they had, like, previously done kind of biblical tales that are just, like, very super irreverent in that, like, dogma-like manner. It just kind of shows you, like, how this show has been doing all these things from the start, and that, like, it's just part of the DNA of this thing.
The show takes religion seriously, but sort of takes the taking of religion irreverently.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's kind of how... I mean, you know, the show is irreverent in general. I feel like that's so much a part of its DNA, is that it doesn't take itself seriously while being very ambitious and engaging in some really serious subject matter.
So you mentioned how Xena is like totally nonplussed by Hanuman being this like monkey guy.
She's not, though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's great.
She's just like...
Right, but Gabrielle, meanwhile, in the background is a little bit freaking out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She's like, monkey.
Yeah, and I thought that was like, a little strange because, you know, she's seen like the Destroyer and whatever.
I mean, I like to think that they were just nonplussed that this guy had snuck into their camp. Like, that's always a bit concerning. You're like, whoa, dude, right there over me while I sleep.
Okay, yeah.
And now, of course, he is just picking Xena up, so that's disturbing that he's that strong.
Yeah. So he offers his help in protecting Eli from Indrajit. He's known one other avatar before.
I thought it's so funny that he makes this, like, reductive statement. Oh, all avatars think they don't need my help. And they're like, wait, you've had other avatars? And he's like, one. Stop talking yourself up, dude. You don't have as much experience as you claim.
Yeah, and he tells them that Xena should take Eli to the great temple and ask for Krishna's help. Krishna is the supreme personality of the godhood. Mm-hmm. He would know how to deal with Indrajit.
I thought it was interesting that Hanuman's description of Krishna here as the supreme personality of the godhood, that's a very specific way of contextualizing Krishna, putting him at the top of the pantheon. Like, a lot of Hindus see Krishna as an avatar for Vishnu, much as Rama is, much as, you know, Eli himself is being referred to as an avatar. So to put him as the supreme personality of the godhood seems to be putting him kind of above those characters.
Right.
He is not an avatar in that same way. It is referring to a branch of Hinduism called Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which is the worship of Krishna as that supreme personality.
And what the person who was really against this episode
was a worshiper of
yeah.
Krishna. So it is interesting that actually this episode is espousing some of those beliefs word for word. A bit ironic, or I don't know, maybe that's exactly what annoyed him. Yeah.
A little too.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I do think probably RJ was looking at very specific texts, which makes sense. He's not an expert in all of Hinduism. He probably had a few things he was looking at.
But I feel like what he was looking at, they get right.
Yeah.
It's to me, who does not know it very much and is not qualified to talk about it.
For me, like, compared to the absolute mess that was between the lines last week, where you just, wasn't using vocabulary correctly, just kind of was just making up its own rules as it went along. This, to me, I think, is a much more good faith effort.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to make up its own mythology, but to use aspects of various branches of Hinduism in a way that is true to them. But yeah, I think there is some Vaishnavism here with actually the way it makes Krishna so central in that pantheon.
I think also it's that line maybe is just to simplify to people who are not aware of Hinduism, but they are aware of the Greek pantheon. So when you say Krishna is the supreme god, you're like, oh, he's like Zeus.
He's like Zeus,
So that's easy for people to kind of equate. Oh, he's powerful.
And I think if you had taken he's an avatar of Vishnu, that becomes confusing because so is Rama.
Right.
So then he's one of these avatars like Eli that Hanuman is there to advise, and that just kind of muddles up these power dynamics. So we're meant to see in this episode that Krishna is above those other characters.
So next morning, they're on their way to the temple when Hanuman spots some dirt piles of Indrajit's demons.
Yes.
And he jumps straight up into a super tall tree.
The important detail here is that Indrajit doesn't leave tracks because he attacks from the sky.
Right.
That was funny.
Pinning it.
That was very like Sherlock Holmes, like, how do you see the traces of the flying carpet?
So he's Hanuman is all up in the tree, and Xena sends Gabrielle and Eli to take cover, and then she proceeds to flip right into that tree next to Hanuman.
Hanuman is so into this.
I love that part. Yes.
Yeah.
How wonderful.
Yes, he's delighted.
I love it.
You can climb trees just like one of us. You must have learned from monkeys. That was so cute. I don't know. I really love this detail.
I do too.
Well, Hanuman doesn't get a lot of opportunities to just kind of be himself in this episode. Like, he's often our exposition machine. So it's kind of fun to have a moment where he's just sort of, oh, somebody like me.
Right, yeah.
We have common ground.
Yeah. And she's like, no, I did not learn this from monkeys. I learned this from Amazons.
That I then killed in the trees. Leave that part out, Xena. Leave that part out.
And he's like, Amazons?
So then we get kind of our primer on Hanuman's history with Indrajit. And this is basically a summary of some Ramayana stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He says that he assisted Rama when Rama killed Indrajit's father. That's Ravana. I was reading about the Ramayana, which, kind of the next 20 minutes of the episode or so are adapting aspects of it, at least. This idea that characters are kidnapped and taken to Lanka. Like, this is straight out of Ramayana, where Rama's wife, Sita, gets kidnapped and taken to Lanka, and then he has to go wage a war to get her back. To me, it really reminded me of Troy.
Yeah.
Like, the basic narrative structure of Troy. And in fact, Indrajit, he's the son of Ravana, who's under attack. And he seems kind of reluctant to get involved, much in the way that Hector does. So I thought it was interesting to actually think of Indrajit, who's in Xena portrayed as satanic. He's actually more the Hector in the Ramayana.
Well, that's like, are you Team Achilles or Team Hector? That's
True.
the
If you're
question.
Team Achilles, then Hector is Satan. Is that what you're telling me?
No.
That's how you see Hector?
No.
Get out of here.
Troy, now on Netflix. So Hanu.
You're on, like, you have an affectionate nickname.
Why are we calling him Han? Hanuman basically says that he's immortal. Like, he's super duper old.
Right, he remembers Rama. He
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah, he helped him kill Indrajit's father. So the only person that seems to be able to kill him is Indrajit. Which makes you go, well, he's definitely dying this episode. What a line.
Yeah. And also, like, wow, dude, you must not like your immortality very much if you seek out the one guy who has the power to end you. I gotta say, it's really cool. And this is one of the reasons I really love The Way, is that it really bases itself on these Hindu epics. Mm-hmm. I think, unlike Between the Lines and Devi, which to me, like, Devi is The Exorcist, and Between the Lines is a time travel story, like the Terminator, or, you know, they're these very familiar Western narratives that they're actually using. Whereas here, they are quite explicitly using the Ramayana, and they're using the Mahabharata, and it's interesting. I think it immediately makes the episode feel different in this really exciting way. Yeah, it's its own thing. It's not trying to be like, you know, does this remind you of the Terminator or the Exorcist? No, like,
right, yeah,
it's just
some
like,
of this reminds me of Exorcist, so we're not there yet.
But you know, in little beats. Whereas the overall structure here, it's its own epic, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's only to do with like this episode's kind of blenderizing of Christianity and these stories.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, with Xena, it's always an adaptation. It's always a blender. But I like that the individual elements being thrown into the blender this time are, for the most part, Indian sources.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the not Indian people here.
Gabs and Eli just hanging
They're
out.
on a date.
They're like,
little picnic
it's so
date.
very like Jesus in films, like sitting on the
He's lounging.
He is. I was going to say he's really kind of doing a draw me like one of your French girls.
Olivia made me, I shouldn't say made me.
I did make her
watch. No, I was very into the idea. We watched The Last Temptation of Christ the other night in the expectation that maybe there were some references in there.
We found one.
We found some for like earlier in the 2 years ago in this program.
Do you remember that shot from Destiny where the camera's behind the cross as it's going up?
Oh, yeah.
It's a really cool shot. They stole it from Martin Scorsese.
Wow.
Straight up.
Christ.
Yeah. But I feel like I forget where I was going with that.
Just wanted everyone to know.
But it's just like, you know, the hanging out, like sitting, like
having deep conversations.
Yeah. The controversy, the title card in front of that one.
Oh man.
I'm just like really glad we're not talking about that movie, which is like 30 million times more problematic than this.
I think Harvey Keitel's Judas wig is just the most problematic thing I've ever seen.
Barbara Hershey, the maybe not original problematic henna.
Oh.
Anyway, if we're totally forget what we were talking about.
Eli and Gabs discussing the truth.
Yes.
What is the truth?
It's life.
We must revere it wherever we find it. To bring peace to this world, I have to teach mankind a reverence for life. I love Gabrielle's reactions to everything Eli says here.
Me too.
Because she is disturbed by it, because she knows it all already. I think this is very clear. This is the first time Gabrielle has had a spiritual mentor who's kind of just reaffirming things she has already figured out for herself, and that's somehow worse for her, because that's everything she feared was true about the world is now like being told to her in a like this is it way.
Yeah, because he tells her that they need to break the cycle of violence, and the only way,
Misa,
the only way you can do that is through love. And that is literally Gabrielle's speech in Callisto.
In Callisto, all the way back in Callisto.
Yeah.
We get these very, like, straight-up New Testament bits.
Oh, yes. As, you know, Jesus said in Matthew 5:38, I drink a whiskey drink. I drink a vodka drink. I get knocked down. But I get back up again. They're never going to keep me down. He's Sermon on the Mountain here to Gabrielle, basically saying, you know, she's like, you know, so if someone comes along and knocks you down, he's like, I'll get back up. And then she says, what if they knock you down again? He says, I'd get back up if I could. He right now is in a phase of very, like, very much pacifism, to the point where we'll see later in the episode he does not do anything.
Right, Katie, you and I had a big conversation in, I think maybe that was Paradise Found, about pacifism versus non-action, like passivity versus pacifism.
Yeah.
Like, can you be an active pacifist is a big question.
And
here
this
I think Eli is doing both. He's passive.
Mm-hmm. And this is actually a big part of what Xena and Krishna will talk about when they kind of start doing the Bhagavad Gita in a little bit, which I think is somewhat a reaction to the idea of aestheticism at the time, which is just basically like removing yourself from society versus like not doing that. We'll get there.
Involved.
Yes.
Yeah. Also important to note that this is very Gandhi, this particular mode of behavior that Eli is out kind of summarizing for us. Like it's sort of half New Testament and half Gandhi, like breaking the cycle of violence with nonviolence. That's ahimsa, which was Gandhi's big thing. So it's an interesting, considering that we're in India, to have Eli quoting scripture but also quoting Gandhi. I think a great example of the way that Xena is able to combine these sources. And obviously Gandhi is very influenced by Jesus in part. So, it's a circle.
It's all a chakram.
Yeah.
Everything is always so much more complicated than people make things out to be. There's always just so much, yeah.
So we go from this one pair of lovebirds to another sitting in a tree.
Yes, it's intercutting.
They're having the same conversation, basically, which I thought
It
really,
was so great.
really cool.
Yeah, two different kind of like mentors.
Yeah.
I love the detail that Hanuman is scratching his back. And Xena goes, Hanuman, you're old as balls. How do you know you've been living the right code or lifestyle or...
I love that she said the word lifestyle,
Yeah.
which has such modern day implications.
Yeah.
Like to me, that when you say lifestyle, you're talking about...
Beavers.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you're talking about sexuality. So I thought that was intriguing for Xena to use that word there.
Right. Yeah, so she can't think of another word, and he comes up with one for her. What is it, guys?
Way!
Whoa! No way! Yeah, so what's the right way for you? And Hanuman says, my way is the way of obedience and loyalty. Xena goes, what happens if a person gets stuck between two ways?
That's not good.
It's not good.
I love that he's just like, that's not good.
Each person has only one way.
Important for later.
Xena is still very confused, but she's saved by the flying magic carpet in the distance.
Oh, no. Here we go.
So we have this shot of
It literally looks like a UFO.
Yeah.
Unidentified
the truth is out
object.
there.
We're about to enter a sequence of very problematic events. So they're like, we got to get to the temple because Indrajit is flying around. So the next thing is they're all walking into town, and it's basically like close-ups of Eli getting like swamped by villagers.
And we even slow down this footage just so you can
Dissolve.
stare at it for longer.
Right. Well, the father of that daughter he healed was like, hey, everyone, look, it's the Avatar. So everybody comes over and starts kind of fondling him.
And this is very much representing, Eli's white Jesus inner turmoil of not being able to help everyone, as you were saying before to Gabrielle. This is the part that made me want to bust out in the temple from Jesus Christ Superstar. At very end, when he's getting overrun with people, and he's just like, "Stop pushing me!" That's not how it goes. But basically, he's like, "There's too many of you." Ah! It's so not how it goes at all. And then it ends up being like,
I think you're really good at that, Katie. I think
"Heal yourself!"
you should totally be in that John Legend.
Oh my gosh! I'm so excited about the John Legend Sarah Bareilles. How do you pronounce her name? Amazing singer-songwriter. Live, Jesus Christ Superstar, Easter Sunday on NBC. I am stoked. I will be there with bells on.
Oh, that's randomly reminded me of a funny fact about the controversy, which was that Universal announced that they were pulling the episode on Easter.
No, sir.
I don't know why I find that so funny, but it's very
They
funny.
sent out the press release on a Sunday.
I think on the Monday after
Okay.
Easter.
I was like,
Yeah,
nobody's
like,
working. So this is more of the same imagery. Again, this is not the best. This is the kind of stuff that you can point out to and be like, this is racist.
I also find frustrating what Eli says to the crowd, which is that he's only been able to help them because in their hearts they're as innocent as children, which I thought was very patronizing. I mean, I get how
Well, he means that
all
they don't do
people-
violence on his behalf, because that's what the father of that daughter is like, oh my God, Indrajit's coming, let's all fight to protect Eli, our avatar. And he's like, no, if you do that, you will spill blood and you will no longer be innocent.
Yeah, I mean, I get the intent, but I feel like maybe it's the combination of these close-up shots of like various extras gazing at him worshipfully and him saying, "In your hearts, you're all as innocent as children," whereas I am a wise white man. Like it's really not okay.
I just think he didn't want them to fight on his behalf because
Yeah.
he keeps insisting
That people should not
leave.
fight on his behalf, even though he throughout the episode profits by people actually refusing to follow what he says and fighting on his behalf.
So Hanuman tells everybody to GTFO. Indrajit is coming. Eli and Gabs run into the temple. Xena is left outside to kind of shoo everyone who's a straggler away. Inside the temple, Gabrielle asks if the statue with the flute that looks like Krishna is Krishna.
And indeed it is.
Yup.
There was a weird edit here that bugged me, and it's so irrelevant to even mention, but it's just like she's walking and you hear the question, and then there's like the back of them, and she does a thing with her hand, and it's a thing that she does with her hand in a second when it's like, no offense. When she says no offense.
so
So it doesn't make sense when she's like doing a hand thing when you have like the voiceover part, and it's like, it just bugs me so hard. Anyway, I'm like, she's not doing a weird hand thing. It's just the part where she was like, no offense.
I like this conversation with Hanuman.
I do too.
I like that Gabs has this line where she's kind of apologizing to Hanuman by explaining that, it's the no offense line. It's that she isn't used to waiting for the gods to bail them out.
Yeah,
Like,
which is legit.
Yeah, it shows like where she and Xena are coming from in this episode.
Right,
Yeah.
the shitty Greek gods.
The shitty Greek gods who never help them out.
Yeah, instead they caused all their troubles.
Yeah.
Again, like with the whole comparing Krishna to Zeus thing, Hanuman says that Krishna can shapeshift and appear however he likes, but the ultimate manifestation is that of the supreme deity.
Yeah, it's an intriguing line. It makes you think Krishna's going to appear in some other guise. It seems to
No,
be
he
setting
looks
up.
exactly
That's
like the
why
statue.
I have a thing for this in a bit.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Katie's got a thing.
Pin.
Okay.
It's not true, but it's just a weird. Anyway, continue.
Hanuman can just tell by looking at Gabs that she's kind of freaked out by the stuff that Eli's been saying to her.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I know his words touch anyone with an open heart. I really love Gabs' reaction to being told this about her open heart. She removes her scarf that's
Right.
around her chest, exposing her Mendi,
Yeah.
but also her heart.
Yeah.
Like she
Right.
opens her heart right there.
Well, that's what the heart chakra is all about.
Yeah, that is her heart. So she exposes it as if he's kind of.
I thought that was
said
such an
something that's
interesting
true.
moment too. Hanuman's kneeling in front of the Krishna statue. He's got the prayer hands, and Gabrielle kind of like kneels by him, right? And we just kind of established that she doesn't really believe this stuff because the Greek gods are so shitty. To me, the moment where she removes the scarf at that moment resonated with all those times, she removes like the stuff
she
that
keeps
she
doing that. Yeah.
Her party hat.
Yeah,
Gets
like
her
the party hat.
off.
So like again, she's wearing the scarf. Is it pretend like he's talking about something that's like real?
She keeps
And
trying things on.
Yeah,
taking them
and he gets to the essence of her there.
Yeah, the open heart.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
read a very problematic reading of this sort of idea that Eli's way is the ultimate way when you have these setups like in Xena where like all these religions are true. I highly recommend an article called By the Gods or not. Religious plurality and Xena Warrior Princess, which I kind of want to get into some of it, but like the relevant part to this, which is like just super problematic, is the idea that if you want this idea that if his way is the ultimate way, that like if reincarnation is true and also Eli is true, that like you get reincarnated to the point where like your last one to follow the ultimate way would be like you're a Christian.
Oh!
Yeah. Isn't that very problematic?
Something to look forward to, Vera.
I thought that was interesting. That's not what the article is about. The article is actually very, very fascinating about the different ways you can view religious plurality. But that was like just one
This
one
goes
part
back
of it.
to, I think, what you were saying about the show just being messy, which is,
Yeah.
when you try to codify it into a single worldview, even about religious plurality, how does what it's saying about Hinduism fit with what it's saying about Christianity? Like, it doesn't, which is why when you try to say, well, what it's actually saying is that Eli's way is the ultimate way, to a certain extent, I think you just have to kind of accept that when he said, that it's more symbolic than that. When he says Eli's way is the ultimate way, it's more about what Eli is trying to do, what Eli believes, not like actually what Eli stands for.
Yes,
like
specifically.
the world religion that like comes about because of Eli.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that it's messy, and I think this episode doesn't have the final word on these matters, even though it kind of fronts like it does.
Anything does.
Yeah.
In this show.
That's true.
The article, like, it has it like talks about 6 different ways you can look at like religious plurality, and then adds a 7th specifically for Xena. Should I go through them, or is that like too much of a tangent?
It sounds interesting. Let's start.
There's exclusivism, which is that one religion is true. Antipathy, all are false. Subjectivism, what you believe is true for you. Pluralism, all are true. Inclusivism, your religion is true, but others have the seeds of truth. Oh, I can't pronounce this, you guys. Fideism, help me. A commitment to your own religion while not judging those of others, and that the truth is unanswerable. And then the author of this article adds localism for Xena, the ancient idea of localism, which associates the various gods with particular peoples or geographic locations, and tends to limit the power of the gods or other supernatural forces to their home regions or native peoples.
Right, so that's what we were saying last week about Alti going to India to feed off people who believe in reincarnation. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, and I think really the fact that there are just so many ways of viewing pluralism shows you how impossible it is to just come into Xena and be like, what is Xena's conclusion about religion?
Yeah.
Like, there just isn't one.
There
and
isn't
I
one.
think it's important, Eli is going to continue to be a character in Xena. I think by the end, he's a much more ambiguous figure than he's being presented here. Like, the show does a lot of work with him to question like what he actually means and like what Christianity will end up doing for the world. Like, I don't think it's entirely glorifying it at all. So Hanuman here saying that his way is the ultimate way is certainly not the final statement the show will make about Eli.
So outside, Xena is still shooing people away because they have not left. And she sees the father of that daughter, and she makes the, you gotta be kidding me, this guy face. She's coming over to him.
I didn't understand what happened here. I was really confused.
I don't know.
Like, did the demons kill the real father? Was there no real father?
We have no
I
idea.
was really concerned about this poor little girl. Was that man never her father? Is that why she was so quiet? Because she was like, what the fuck? Who's this guy?
She went into a coma to escape him.
Is this like Cal in Titanic where he just like grabbed a little girl and was like, my child! I have a child!
I think that one.
Yeah.
Titanic, directed by James Cameron.
It all comes full circle.
So yeah, suddenly this dude turns around and it's like, demon face, demons everywhere. Demons grab Xena up. They start beating her.
Yeah, they get her pretty
Yeah,
good.
man, they are. Yeah, she's just a little bit out of her league here.
So she has trouble this episode.
Yeah, she does.
I must say.
I like it.
Eli. somewhat surprisingly, is the one who's like, Xena's in trouble, we have to help her.
Yeah.
Throwing his stated
He's
beliefs
supposed to
out the
have, I feel
window.
like, have like sensed it, but I feel like you could just hear her
Yeah,
yelling.
being like,
yeah.
But what's he gonna do?
Right, he comes out of that temple to just stare
to
and
be
not do
nonviolent
anything.
at her.
Yeah.
Xena's in trouble. Let's non-violence at her.
So Gabrielle's the one who like holds him back, actually.
Yeah, I guess it shows that at this point in his story, Eli just isn't. Even though he can,
Maybe he didn't.
He ain't practicing what he preaches.
Oh shit! I think he was really kind of like not into what Hanuman was saying about like Eli's ultimate way, which he was like in the corner
in the
listening to all of it.
Yeah, so maybe he's rebelling a bit.
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
like, no, I'm gonna go help beat up some demons.
Yeah. Well, here comes Indrajit
Oh, yes.
on his sweet ride.
I found this actor's reel of, like clips on Vimeo, and he put this on there, and there's a fun little blurb underneath where he's talking about playing Indrajit, and then just mentions how controversial the episode was, and I just thought that was great. This is, I think, one of our major reasons why this episode is offensive. I think this actor is great, but when you're looking at the episode as a whole, you have an Indian character riding in on a magic carpet, and he's the only character actually in the like sort of pantheon of gods here that's actually like represented as a South Asian actor.
Not
You know what I mean?
under a ton of paint.
Not under a ton of paint, yeah. And it's kind of just it's offensive in the way that, like, Aladdin is offensive. You know what I mean? It's like all your villains have to look like you have the evil mustache
The
and your
turban
turban.
and
It's
your
just like
carpet.
it's very coded and stereotypical and bad. Don't do this.
I was reading about where this whole idea of the magic carpet comes from, which it's in Arabian Nights, and that it is a carpet purchased in India, and hence India is involved
Sure.
tangentially. I was like, okay, so this isn't really an Indian thing at all. Like, they just kind of took this from Arabian Nights. But also King Solomon had a magic carpet. And
What?
that's actually, most people point to that as where magic carpets actually came from.
What did his
Hebrew
carpet do?
Legend. A queen who was really into him made him a carpet, and he loved this carpet, and he like used it all the time. And
What did he do
it
to
had-
the carpet?
And it had these magic powers, so he could put his whole army on it.
Oh, cool.
And then fly around, moving your army is
Yeah.
just like so much what warfare is all about.
Yeah.
So he could do it really quickly, moving like 40,000 people. And God like had enough of Solomon. It was just like, your pride is like through the roof with your fucking magic carpet. So he like blew on it, and the carpet tipped over, and 40,000 of his soldiers like fell to earth
Oh my
and died.
gosh! Wow, that's an amazing story. I've never heard of it.
This special effect is ridiculous.
I liked it. I liked this.
I feel
I'm
like
just saying.
they couldn't figure out how to do cloth. Like, it looks more like plastic.
I think we have seen so much worse on this show already. Even last week with the Mendy, like this is
This is no
great.
Lucky Charms.
No. I didn't mind Lucky Charms. It was the, cosmos kind of little particles that I thought were silly. This I thought was really cool.
You know what? I liked certain aspects of this. I think there were shots where it worked better than others. I love the idea of the one shot where he's blocking out the sun.
Yeah, that was
I
such a
thought
great
that was pretty
detail.
cool. Yeah.
Like, that was so unnecessary, but it was cool.
And I did just like, obviously, the less special effects driven ways of portraying it. Just when you have the camera as
Yes.
Indrajit. So his point of view, just like sailing down on Gabs, chasing her, like that. That was cool. That's always good.
Yeah. So Indrajit, he snatches Eli right up and shoves him into his
in
carpet.
the carpet.
What did you think of this effect?
I thought it was cool. He does the frighteners.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
straight up the frighteners. Yeah.
New Zealand.
Woo!
Peter Jackson. So while he's been shoving Eli into the carpet, I loved Gabrielle's reaction. I mean, both Xena and Gabs are like, "What the fuck
Yeah.
about all of this?" This was pretty great. I like when they are kind of genuinely like impressed and shocked. So we have this really great chase sequence like you mentioned, Liv, where we have the POV of the flying carpet chasing Gabs
Who's
and
running barefoot.
and her stunt double. Yeah.
Her running is a little hesitant. She's like, oh no, the rock.
I know, gosh. And then Xena sees all this, so she's now after her to try to help her. And
this shot as Xena dives for
Yeah.
her, it's so good. Xena's diving, so you see her, head first, arms outstretched. She is right there at Gab's ankles, and then Indrajit gets her, and you see Gabrielle's ankles just flying off the ground. This is all in a single shot.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It was really cool.
Really cool stunt.
Yep, he snatches her right up, and they're gonna go to Lanka.
And I love that you still hear, even from inside the carpet, Gabs being
She's
like,
like,
Xena!
Oh, no. Oh, boy. Well, Xena and Hanuman need to help them.
Yeah, so it turns out that in Lanka, Indrajit is gonna be super duper powerful
He's
with
got hundreds of
all
Lanka
the demons
is
ever.
An equivalent of hell.
It
Correct.
Seems
They set a
similar.
semi-
It's definitely, I
in
think,
the context of the episode.
via a portal. You have to get there. It's not
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, and visually it's dark and gross and
But I don't know. He's got a lot of amazing throw pillows on his throne. So I think they just got to turn on the lights.
Well, Hades' castle is pretty cool too. So Xena storms back into the temple and she's pissed that Krishna didn't show to help them. Hanuman says, well, with these gods, sometimes you've got to try something unusual to get their attention.
I was so Hanuman is going to be we have to have sex.
That's just it.
That would be something else.
Really unusual.
Yeah, that's an odd phrasing when, actually the next thing he says is, you pray.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem that unusual to me.
But
But
It is.
It
We've
is in
only
the
seen
sense
her
that-
do it once.
Yeah.
And there she did it to whoever was listening, right?
Yeah.
That was her prayer.
Let's just always point out that it's always because of Gabrielle.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
Just a dead dum dum.
Well,
Yeah, so-
sometimes it's not. Put a pin in it.
That's true, but so far.
So far.
Things
far.
she loves. How about that?
But yet love. I mean, love is the truth. That's the only thing.
Yeah,
We got, podcast over.
But is it a love, a love without attachment, Buddha style, a love for all things, or is it a very attached love, a
No.
deeply personal
Will
love?
you pin that extraordinarily?
Giant fucking pin nailed in.
Gotcha.
What if it's a love between a monkey and a woman?
Bestiality.
All right, so let's talk about Lanka. It's gross and dark, as we mentioned. I love the shot of Gabrielle and Eli being tossed out of that carpet.
He just rolled about.
Good.
It's amazing.
It's really witty.
I love it.
Because, you roll like a dead body in the carpet if you're in the mafia. So I
Right.
love that he actually just rolls him out of there.
Rolls him out of there. I mean, I guess that's what happened to Cleopatra, right?
Oh,
So-
yeah. Roll her out.
And Gabrielle immediately panics and starts looking for ways out. Eli is super chill.
This is my favorite thing because Eli immediately is like, I'm just doing nothing here. And he says, be patient. And she's like, I don't think that's very realistic.
Yeah.
This is an evil man.
I love her delivery. It's really good. It's she's frustrated, but you can tell that Renee sees the just comedy of the whole situation and
Yeah.
is really playing it up in a great way.
And she's like, this is an evil man. Did you see his mustache?
Oh no.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And then Eli's getting kind of punchy, and he's like, he's not a man at all, Gabrielle. He's the incarnation of evil itself.
Great.
Is that supposed to make me feel better? Says Gaz. So this is just really fun. I like that they're playing Eli as what he is, which is someone who's practicing non-action, non-violence.
Right.
And then seeing that Gabs is kind of bumping up against it. But at the same time, you
Yeah.
see the connection between these two characters. The fact that it's sort of played for the humor of it, I feel like shows that Gabs gets it, even while she's being frustrated about it.
Well, Eli, sitting there doing nothing, is certain that if he sticks to his way, he will defeat Indrajit, because Indrajit's way is the way of evil. Eli's way is the way of love.
And as you're saying, her frustration comes out here because she's like, I know that. And she says it twice, but it's the conflicting, like, just entire way of, like, her and Xena's life, like, versus this.
Yeah, love versus love in some ways. Like, I mean, this is exactly what she said in Callisto. Like, she's completing his sentence because she's known the answer all along. But yeah, you feel like she's resisting it too. Like, is Eli's love Gabrielle's love? I think that's an important question to be asking even at this early stage.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, Xena is cracking her knuckles. She's getting ready to pray.
I'm gonna do this.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry. Sorry.
What's he into? Chanting? Sacrifices? But Hanuman explains, and this is important, that he isn't like other gods. And I think by that we're meant to understand not like any of the other gods that we've seen on Xena Warrior Princess. He's in everyone, every living being. To find him, Xena needs to only look within. And this is, I think, getting to a very particular kind of Hindu practice, which is bhakti, which is the idea of an individual's particular relationship with the gods.
And this is part of the Bhagavad Gita, which is
we are
what they're about to do.
About to do just straight up Bhagavad Gita. Katie, you want to explain Bhagavad Gita?
It's a part of the Mahabharata that is often taken out as like a separate piece of it. The Mahabharata is another like epic kind of narrative in the vein of the Ramayana, which we've been talking about, which is sort of about, I think, a big war. Let's just keep it simple because I don't know a super lot. But the actual Bhagavad Gita is like a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, who is a warrior. And in this story, he is, fighting on one side, and the other side of the war, there's like people that he knows and all this stuff, and he just gets
his kinsmen,
like,
right? His family.
Family and kinsmen are on the other side, and just kind of like gives up, is about to like throw in the towel, and then Krishna, who is, I think, his chariot driver, engages with him about the way of the warrior, which is, in the context of this episode right now, when Krishna appears, Xena kind of becomes Arjuna. And a lot of the dialogue is it is right out of it in a way that I think makes it very clear. Also, I love this sequence in the sense that it's like you have Gabrielle and Eli, and then you have Xena, and there are these, I think it does it a few times where maybe 2 times, it intercuts back and forth from Xena's face to Gabrielle's face, and these dissolves where they're both praying or meditating.
And it's so rare. You consider the previous time we had intercutting like this, which was Paradise Found, where you had Gabrielle practicing Yoda.
Downward dog, you will.
Practicing yoga and Xena doing Tai Chi. Yeah. And that was as close as Xena could get to kind of being in that mental space that Gabrielle was going for. Here, you really have them in the exact same place. They're both trying to speak to God. They're both centering themselves and trying to speak to God. So I thought that was really cool to have that dissolve between the two.
This is a syndicated action adventure show, and these just intense concepts of these 2 women trying to communicate with God right now,
or with Yoda,
Virgin, or Yoda, which is similar, and we could write a comparison with Xena and Star Wars if we'd like. I just think this is incredible, and that's why I do get a little bit defensive. Not to say that again we are going into the problematic areas of this episode, but I love that these ideas are in this show. I love it.
It's really amazing, and that's why I get frustrated when people say, well, it's just like a silly television show. Like, don't take it too seriously. And, thinking that somehow is, like, pardoning it from causing offense. It's like, no, this show's very serious. Like, it really is, like, that when they say, like, their intent was to like portray these concepts, I think, in a very deeply respectful, serious way. These are characters who are looking for the truth of how to live life. Like, that's like the through line of this episode is please give our lives meaning, which I mean is so rare to see in an action.
Big time.
Saturday morning action serial. Like, what religious worldview will make my life worth living?
Right.
Yeah. And I do think that there is something to be said for, you know, the idea that a lot of people watching this show might not be familiar with some of this stuff. I personally have now read a bunch of the things that we're talking about, which I may not have done had I not been introduced to it through Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah, I want to talk.
Incredible.
I want to talk about this more once we're through talking about the main spirit of the episode. But like, I do think, that what's so cool about the way is that for a Western audience, you're going to come out of it with some not entirely inaccurate ideas about what Hinduism is. And I think a lot of people would not have been familiar with this before going into the episode. And that's awesome.
Cool. Carry on.
So one thing about Xena praying and looking within and the dissolves that you mentioned, Katie, is that the first dissolve goes from Xena to Gabrielle, and I thought it was really symbolic that, you know, Gabrielle is her within.
That's great.
Oh,
that's really beautiful. So when we're back with Gabrielle, we see her meditating across from Eli. I love the placement here because you have the staff lying between them, sort of dividing them, but also in some ways being the point of the scene. Like the staff's right in the middle. The staff's what it's all about. The staff symbolizes a particular way of behaving, and you almost feel like they're debating it. Like, what do we do with this staff?
Right. And then Indrajit rolls in on his throne.
Oh, I love this. Yeah, the walls of the chamber open up, much like Jabba the Hutt.
Oh my god. Yeah.
He's on a big old throne.
He says he comes in love, and Eli should have compassion for him, for he also feels love. Didn't he love his father, who Rama killed?
So I'm sorry. I was just saying my outline thing, note for this scene is called Not Today, Satan.
I mean, that is legit what's happening here. Indrajit is kind of taking the place of Satan from Christianity, who's there to tempt Jesus.
Yeah.
So he's saying a lot of the same things that Satan says there in the desert, offering him things. But I love that the way the Ramayana is here invoked to humanize Indrajit in this moment. That Indrajit has actual beef in this fight, and you know, why can't he grieve his dad? Why can't he be angry? I think these are cool ideas to throw in there.
He says he wants to be friends with Eli.
Sure. Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?
And then he congratulates Eli on his first real disciple.
This is an interesting statement that Gabrielle is Eli's first disciple.
She believes. She's a true believer. And because of that, Indrajit threatens to torture her in order to finally get a rise out of Eli. That's not cool. And again, this is one of those ones you're like, Eli was so like, relax, it'll be fine as long as I like stick to my way. And by that he means just let yourself be tortured on my behalf. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Oh. It's rough.
So back in the temple with Xena, she's praying away, and to Hanuman, she's like out of the corner of her mouth, she's like, hey, Han, how am I doing?
I love that. How am I doing? How much longer do I have to keep doing this?
And then suddenly she draws her sword. Her spidey senses are tingling again.
Someone's in there with her. Is it Hanuman?
No.
Oh, no.
It's Krishna, who sent Hanuman away. This is the thing that I was saying before about that beat where Hanuman says that Krishna could take many forms. Because this scene with Krishna and Xena is bookended by Hanuman leaving and entering very strangely, and it kind of gave up the implication that he was also Krishna, but I don't think that that's true per se in the episode. I just think that it's something interesting in the staging of the scene where Krishna's like, I sent him away, we should be alone, and then Krishna
very
immediately
creepy.
disappears and Hanuman immediately reappears.
It was weird. Yeah, it was like they couldn't afford both acters in the same scene
I don't know,
at
it's
once.
But also it's Hanuman who originally plants these ideas in Xena's mind that she should pray to Krishna. So it would maybe make sense if Hanuman was Krishna
Oh man,
guiding Xena via this disguise.
I'm shook.
Let's talk about Krishna, you guys.
Yeah, Krishna's here. I enjoy this actor.
I think
he's
he's so good.
The costuming and the makeup design is really great.
Really great.
Yeah, he looks just like the statue. Like what you Google Krishna, he looks just like that.
I agree.
And his manner has this softness and this playfulness and this androgynous quality that my limited understanding of Krishna seems very in line with the god. It's I think just a really impressive piece of acting and character design. Like, they go there, and it doesn't feel like a cartoon at all. It feels quite otherworldly, and I think the director and the director of photography do a great job here of just making this feel like a meeting with a god in a very matter-of-fact way, but also like giving it a certain glorious soft lighting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I love the blocking here, how Krishna keeps kind of circling Xena, like, kind of observing her, but then at one point steps away to light a candle, kind of has this unpredictable quality. He's extremely watchable. Your eyes are on him through this whole scene.
Yeah. It's interesting because she stays mobile, right? So it's like, he is the statue on the altar where the humans circle him, but here he is the one who's circling Xena.
Yeah.
So what does he tell sweet Xena?
Well, he tells her that she needs to open her heart
to me,
to him.
But this is the exact same language as we were just discussing Gabs and her open heart. Her heart is open to Eli. Here's Krishna saying, in order to be helped by a god, you have to be like Gabs. Open your heart.
Yeah.
But I love the exchange where it's like she has to go one step further than just praying. She has to embrace the way. And Xena references watching the TV show Xena Warrior Princess, where she has encountered all these different ways already.
Her list is interesting.
Greece, Chin, Anatolia, and now India.
Greece, obviously, that's like every episode of Xena Warrior Princess. Chin, obviously referring to the dead and Lama. Anatolia is the one where we haven't actually heard that place spoken of outright. In Xena, I think, I'm just kind of assuming here, that it's referring to Turkey, Anatolia, and hence to Najara, because it seemed like in that episode that she was from the Middle East.
Certainly had a way about her.
And that just makes sense as one of our great spiritual leaders.
For this season.
Right, yeah.
So, and now India. Mm-hmm. She says, I don't get it. The way is not for people like me.
Which is a really wonderful, not wonderful is a weird word to say, but I loved her delivery of that.
It's sad.
Yeah, that's what I mean about
it's
that.
wonderfully sad.
Yeah.
And then I love, this is such perfect Krishna delivery, like how he's just like, you're wrong. Like, in this sort of playful way, but also a little frustrated.
I love the way he, like, always comes back at her, like, Xena.
Yeah, like, come on, girl. You're so close.
You're missing it by a thread, or what, a horse's hair.
Yeah, by the width of a hair is the same as missing it by the height of the mountain.
I don't know why I said horse.
Horse hair, even...
They're all hairs.
But I love that Xena just doesn't see herself as the sort of a spiritual person.
Yeah.
She lists all the spiritual people who she knows and says, like, I don't have the patience of Gabrielle, the love of Eli, the serenity of my mentor Lama. They're reminding you the dead exists. I'm just an angry, ass-kicking
warrior.
I love that Xena says ass to a god.
Sure.
That's so Xena.
Yeah, and then she goes, yes, a warrior. And he goes, you say that with disgust, which I thought was such an interesting...
This is so... to me, this is like the heart of the show up till now. Like, these are these are things the show hasn't said just outright. Like, Xena is ashamed of being a warrior.
Yeah.
So I love that not only is it called out, it's called out by a god. It's just like, why are you ashamed of, like, calling yourself Xena Warrior Princess?
Name given to her by her mentor, Lama. So here we have the establishment of the idea of the way of the warrior. I don't really feel super like I can get into the idea of like a warrior class in Hinduism, but I do think that it is a interesting overlay to put onto Xena, who is a warrior, and the idea that like it's okay for her to be this, and if she follows being a warrior, then she will be doing everything right, I guess, right? The exact quote he has is, "You must not be hesitant to fight in a just cause. Better to die following your own way than to live following someone else's. When you ride into combat, act without attachment and carry with you the confidence that you are fulfilling your calling in this life. Then you will know the way."
So what really struck me about this was how he says that you should act without attachment. Because that to me is a very, like, not very Xena idea. Because Xena, what do we know about Xena? She's attached. Like, she fights for people. Like, she fights for Gabs. Like, she's very motivated by individual attachment. And this is getting into what you were kind of hinting at earlier, Katie, about, like, Eli's version of love versus maybe a more personal kind of love that Xena and Gabs feel for each other.
It's called friendship love.
Yes, friendship love. So I thought it was interesting because I've certainly seen people talk about this dialogue between Krishna and Xena sort of being like almost like a thesis statement, like this is what Xena has to do. But important to look at this and see that even here there's some ambiguity because he's advising Xena to ride into battle, not exactly ignoring her love for Gabrielle, but not being attached to that love in that moment of battle. And that's obviously something that Xena doesn't really do all that well.
No, I mean, like, she got cut in this earlier part of the episode looking at Gabs.
Concern for Gabs, in part, yeah. So, and also that whole idea of attachment, I hear the word attachment and I think of Buddhism, which was interesting, just because that's, like, the one big world religion that doesn't really feature here.
True, yeah. Very explicitly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Islam, which isn't around yet in the time frame of Xena Warrior Princess. I think I always, when I hear arguments like this, I just harken back to what I think is the thesis statement of the whole show, which is one against an army, which just like really is a whole, if we're going to talk about Xena and Gabrielle, just the idea of how to act versus how to have those feelings of attachment versus like how to respond to them when you're in a situation that like maybe it would be better to ignore the attachment.
Or
not ignore, but like that what's more, ignore is the totally wrong word. Like what is more important, what is the greater good?
Right. Can say it an individual attachment, a love for one person, be magnified until it's a love for all people? Can one turn into the other? Is that the way to ride into battle, is to take your love for one person and expand it to include all people?
Pins it.
That's a pin.
Pin it.
So Krishna blesses her and tells her that if she's following the way of the warrior and calls his name, then he will give her the strength she needs to defeat Indrajit. Then he's like, "Are you ready?"
I love that he tells her to rise up like fire and burn all that oppose you.
Okay.
I think that's right out of the Bhagavad Gita, right?
That's pretty great.
Yeah. Good. Xena, burn them all down, Xena.
She says that she's ready, and then Krishna's gone.
I'm ready. That's how she says it.
Yeah. And then Hanuman's there, and he's like, I'm ready too.
Oh my god, that's my favorite part of the whole episode is when Hanuman reappears and he's like, I'm ready too. And then there's like a dramatic turn.
Yeah, twist sachet.
Like, seriously?
Yeah.
That's what happens. It's amazing. Cuts back to Gabrielle and Eli meditating, to which I have noted, this shit is the best. I love this scene because you will notice a trend with me. I love when everything is horrible. .com. Gabrielle is distracted in her meditation session here with Eli by Xena's voice calling her.
Yeah.
And she turns and sees her sitting up on that chair.
The throne? The Iron Throne?
Throne, chained up, bloody, beaten. It's amazing makeup. It's scary.
It's really
good.
scary.
It's disturbing. She's about to be hit by one of his demons, and Gabrielle is distracted and runs up to the situation and bonks the demon.
Yeah, and meanwhile Eli is like being like, no, beware, don't do it, ho, don't do it. When she does it.
And so like you have this like horrible image of Xena just completely bloody and gross, and Gabrielle like tries to comfort her and is like stroking her face, and then all of a sudden it's like her eyes are wide open, just a demon voice. She's like, bruh, this is very Exorcist, very like, she's like, there, now that wasn't so hard, was it? Like,
It's weird because doesn't that remind you guys of Paradise Found? You know? When
Absolutely.
Sudden,
This
violence,
feels,
suddenly violence.
It feels like Xena from that episode.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of comparisons with that episode here in this episode. Yeah, so turns out that was a trick from Indrajit.
whoops.
And Indrajit now transforms back into himself, and he's got Gabs by the throat, and he's laughing at Eli because his first disciple was, like, knocked off her way by a simple illusion.
And so Eli just kind of watches. While
He likes to watch.
Indrajit chokes Gabrielle.
Yeah.
Indrajit says something interesting to Eli. He says that his curse is that he feels everyone's pain.
Mm-hmm.
So he tempts him with the prospect of never having to look on any more human suffering. He'll just surround him with joyous, happy people.
Shiny, happy people, yeah.
Yeah. He'll send him to the suburbs.
Eli refuses, and Indrajit's like, fine, and he's, like, legit gonna snap Gabrielle's neck. Like, you hear cracking, and, like, it's
It's
gross.
It's upsetting.
Yeah.
And gross, yeah. But then, just as he's about to do it, the chakram comes out of nowhere and
Hey.
slices off Indrajit's hand.
Hello, Xena.
Very nice.
How did she get to Lanka?
That's a good question.
We'll never know.
Yep. So then Indrajit becomes the Scorpion King.
Oh boy.
I love how this is almost like a werewolf transformation in horror.
absolutely.
Like it goes
Yeah.
full body horror with, I mean, Indrajit himself is like moaning and seems to be in like terrible pain,
Yeah.
and it's scary.
Because he's growing
6 arms.
too many arms.
Is that the too many cooks?
Too many arms, yep.
I want to say straight off the bat, as we go into the climax of this episode, that the makeup and design is really great. They did a really amazing job with this stuff.
Yeah, it's really persuasive. I mean, this is hard because I think
Yeah.
for the most part these are just like puppet
Yeah,
hands.
you did say a thing, Liv, where you were like, I'm sure if you pause it, you could see like the funny like fake arms, like,
hanging
off, and
Yeah.
that is true.
But this
but
is
in
why.
action, it does not come across.
Yeah, you pick the right shots, you pick the right angles, you edit it together. I think this is a great example of the way that you can shoot possibly cheesy special effects in a way that really mitigates their cheesiness. And yeah, I think this is a huge achievement by the entire production that they make this work. I love that shot of Indrajit's shadow as the arms come out.
Yeah.
It's so evocative. It's really scary. It's just cool. And it like raises the little hairs on my neck. Like it
Sure.
feels like its own thing. Like
Yeah.
I have not seen that before, and I love it.
I don't think I wanted to see that before or ever again. But it's here, and I have to deal with it.
So a lot of art that represents the Hindu gods and goddesses, they often are represented as having 6 arms or multiple limbs, and often they'll have like different objects and things in each arm, and it's meant to represent the like different facets of each god and how powerful they are and how you can like, I mean, I kind of likened it to multitasking. Like, just you could be doing many things at once, and have all these different powers, and then also like the symbols in each hand of different characteristics of the gods. So that's why this is happening, and we'll see it again too.
So I guess
Xena.
we can discern from Indrajit as he grabs all those weapons and has like one axe in each of his 6 arms.
Oh, you love when he like just takes
it's-
like 10 minutes to grab 100
It's
different
so
weapons.
funny. They do a great. I mean, we've seen this shot so many times in Xena, which is picking up the weapon. It's just like an insert of a hand grabbing a weapon. This time we get the insert and a hand grabs a weapon 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 and a hand grabs a weapon. And it's so it's witty. It's scary and witty. It's using this idea of a multi-armed adversary and really exploiting almost like the cinematic language to tell you how different this is.
Yeah.
So then Indrajit proceeds to fight Xena with all the axes and knives ever.
And I love this detail that he steps towards her and steps on his old hand.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Oh, yeah.
swish.
Yeah.
This fight is brutal.
It's
Much
intense.
brutal.
It's intense. And I think they did a good job of making, in the wide shots, it really does look like he's using those extraneous arms in the fight. Like, she's getting hit by those weapons, too. Like, even Xena...
She would be dead
Yeah.
if they were really
Because how
used.
do you deflect that many at once?
Yeah, that's the thing. Good thing that they're just like hanging off of him, and he's really not using them.
But she still has the same problem regardless.
Well, yeah, he pins her to a shield that's hanging on the wall, so it's like he just pins her to the wall, basically, and he ends up putting a dagger through her palm.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of the crucifixion getting ever closer. Like, ew.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, I just kind of wish that every episode of Xena had Xena take this much punishment.
Oh my
know you
god.
do.
You'd be so tired after like 6 episodes.
You have to
No.
have a
You'd
wide
never be
variety of events.
Vera, Vera looks so sad about this.
So he gets her hand pinned to the wall and then proceeds to chop her entire left arm right off.
Right off.
Well, she's just like, what about that?
Yeah. I do like the cuts back to Gabrielle and Eli. Gabrielle's just kind of like,
Really?
it's like very like, I can't even explain her reactions. They're just like, ugh.
She kind of collapses into
That's
Eli.
the second
Oh, that's
time.
the second time.
Yeah.
I don't know what she does the first time.
Well, he's holding Gabrielle back, right? She's
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
come help.
Which again, is that non-action? Like he's actively preventing
Well,
her from
yeah, so they
helping.
wouldn't be
that's
active
a
in
part
the
of
fight.
a thing that, yeah, we can talk about maybe the very last scene, but like not doing anything is a choice.
Yeah,
Yes.
and a quite active one in this case because he's like physically holding her.
Well, Xena has only one arm, her right arm, and she collapses to her knees, and Indrajit proceeds to chop her right arm off.
She's holding it out.
She is holding it out.
Very,
Is it like she's like, do it so that I can grow 4? Or is it like, what's going on with that? It was a weird
I'm
shot.
not sure.
The blocking of it, I'm sure it was very carefully done because they, I'm sure, had a lot of notes about how to do this in a way that was bloodless and it's like the most brutal thing in the world, but to make that seem somehow less graphic. So I feel like there's some awkwardness that you kind of have to pardon because they probably had to be very careful about how they staged this and what they showed.
I guess. It's just, I don't know, it was weird. that
They certainly showed a lot.
Well, he chops her right off. And then he, like, punches her in the face, which was an extra
Yeah.
bit.
That did not
It's
need
like-
to be there. That was extra.
Even though it's like very CGI, I'm laughing because it's like, you know, CGI arms, but
Yeah.
it's still very disturbing.
I saw someone, I forget where now, but on a message board calling her Xenus de Milo.
Yeah.
Because they're just like
Armless
statue-esque.
statue.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely had a statue quality. It sort of, it doesn't look real, and that's part of what's so disturbing about it, because it just kind of looks wrong.
Well, I mean, to me, the most evocative shot, of course, is the big close-up of her face after she
I
falls.
love that angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because she looks very dead.
And there's that trickle of blood out of
Yeah,
her
exactly.
mouth.
Yeah.
Very upsetting.
Yeah. And that's where Gabrielle reacts. She grabs her staff and starts attacking.
Monster Indrajit.
Yeah. He really does not have a problem with fighting Gabrielle. I mean, she's nothing to him.
Oh.
He grabs her staff and puts both ends on fire and then
Yeah.
starts, like, twirling it at her.
This is the second time in a row where we've had villains using Gabrielle's staff against her. We
Right.
had Alti beating her up with it
Oh,
last week.
sad.
And now we have Indrajit.
I
Yeah.
think
Doing some fire
important-
tricks.
Yeah.
Important little beats there.
Fire baton. Yes, very
For
important.
sure.
Keep your eye on that staff.
Yeah, and
And
me...
sorry, but just like that she went to do that. You know what I mean? Again,
Yeah.
always making that. Mm-hmm.
Though her way
But-
seems to be the way of defending Xena when Xena's in trouble.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and it just, it's upsetting because, well, I guess not upsetting, it's just powerful that no matter what, like, she's trying her thing and she just can't not help Xena. Meanwhile, Xena is whispering something and,
Give
yeah,
me
Krishna. Yeah, it was a little strange. I don't know. I thought that sentence was odd, but now I'm, like, into it. I don't know.
I like it. Yeah. I like that it doesn't quite make grammatical sense, but you understand
Yeah.
that she's speaking to Krishna and she's saying, just give me. Help me.
Shouldn't it be Krishna, give me? Like, Krishna, comma, give me?
Not give me, comma, Krishna.
Because I was like, did I mishear it? Did she say forgive me? You know, what is it? Because it doesn't make any sense.
Oh my god, well I love that, but that is not, I mean, according to the captions, that's
Yeah.
not what she
And
said.
they're always right. That's the caption.
It's proven that they are always right. So she levels up, basically.
Yeah.
Krishna gives her a new power, which is
Arms.
arms. Many arms.
All right, let's get into this.
Too many arms. Too many arms.
So yeah, she gets a total makeover. Her skin is black and blue in places.
Yep.
She's wearing a nose ring, a lot of gold jewelry, an outfit that includes a necklace of little heads. What else we got?
All the arms.
Many arms.
There's four. She has 4 arms. Yeah. And there's a very helpful painting of her.
I just
on
want
the
to
wall.
pause for a second because I would like to point out that the transcript on Whoosh for the way, instead of give me, says Gabrielle.
What?
It says Gabrielle ... Krishna.
There's absolutely no way she said Gabrielle.
I'm just saying
I am positive about that.
that this is the transcript
Okay.
on
That is wishful thinking and makes even less sense.
I mean, it makes sense. but
I'm
if you listen
positive.
to it,
Yeah,
it
she
just doesn't
definitely
sound like that.
says give me. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense as to like
Anyway, let's get back to Kali Xena.
Yes,
And that is
Kali
what's
Xena,
going
that is
on.
who we meet.
I do love the painting on the wall that she
Very
rises up in
helpful,
front of,
yes.
so that you know what's happening.
But I love that they never actually say in the dialogue, this is Kali. Or,
Right,
You know,
yeah.
they don't call it out. They're kind of relying on you as the viewer to make this connection with the mural and hopefully to go and seek out more information if this isn't a god that you're familiar with. And I think that's cool. I like the intelligence that that's presuming that your audience is going to take that journey with you.
Sure. Let's
Sure.
talk about...
That's the one piece of intelligence there, okay?
I want us to talk about this scene in many levels while also keeping in mind that this is very not... Just get the coin.
I have the coin. You know what? I have a $5 bill.
$5
A special $5 bill for the way. I wasn't sure when was the appropriate time to put that $5 in, but you know what? I think Xena as Kali. All right.
Oh, it made a
Yeah.
little noise.
Little noise.
I
for
do
the
like.
$5.
Did I read this part already? Like now, I'm like forgetting. But like there was the article about the whole controversy. That's really good. Kind of has a place where it mentions this very instance as like sort of the place where you'd expect the most protest.
Right. It said as a Western audience, like this is what
Yeah.
I would think would be the most offensive to a traditional Hindu audience, and yet nobody during the controversy ever pointed it out, which is why I think, like, not many people had actually seen the episode.
Yeah, the transformation of Xena into Kali may be understood as a very liberal incorporation of a deity from a living religious tradition into a fantasy plot of a television series. But I think that the key thing here is that it's more or less your white hero in blackface.
Yeah,
I don't have any better way to put it. That's what's happening.
This is going one step further than Davy went, which was it also put Gabrielle, white actress, in makeup to suggest that she was a Hindu deity and had her kind of doing this camp performance, enacting this Hindu deity. Now we have Xena doing that basically again, but going even further, because this isn't Taraka, who played a minor role in the Ramayana. This is Kali, one of the major deities.
Yeah, there's a lot of connection between Davy and here. I mean, both Xena and Gabrielle had murals of themselves.
Right, which they, in
transformed,
Davy, you did
yes.
the dissolve. Here, Xena kind of stands up in front of it.
Right,
which was a cool shot.
Yeah. So it is certainly uncomfortable as a viewer to watch this, but there's also, I think, just in the idea of it, interesting stuff going on. And the look is really, really cool. Like that's also in my head at the same time. So it's a very uncomfortable position to be in.
Is it
as a
cool?
viewer.
Like, you think that's...
I think she looks really rad.
And they light it really well. Like, I feel like I love all the highlights. You know, you see Lucy Lawless's blue eyes shining out of that makeup, and it's such a striking image.
But but it's just also like, don't do it. I wish that it wasn't done. Like, there, you know, it's just like you have to recognize that
it's really offensive and just really kind of inexcusable.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me think of. Well, it honestly makes me think of Paradise Found and the two transformations of Xena, where we had Xena be crazy rabbit cave woman, and then here. So I thought that, like, comparing Gabrielle's transformation to Tatika in Davy, where she, like in Paradise Found, transformed to someone who's very beautiful, like Tatika was beautiful. Mm-hmm. I thought it was really fascinating that Xena transforms into this, like, dark monster kind of. I don't know. I mean, I guess she's beautiful in her way.
Yeah, I think Kali is very beautiful if you look at images of her.
I guess
she's scary.
She's
beautiful.
Very scary. She has, like, rock and roll, like, kiss tongue.
Yeah, the lolling pink tongue.
And that actually represents it's supposed to represent an embarrassment. Or a humility moment where in one of the stories about her, after she is like, she has a cool origin story that's very Athena-esque, like burst forth from the goddess Durga.
Nice.
Like during a battle, like in this just rage moment, and like came out just slaughtering demons and stuff.
That's awesome.
And is Shiva?
Yeah,
married to Shiva. And he laid down in front of her, and when she like steps on him, this is why you see this in images, is what got her to stop killing all the demons. And then like her tongue sticking out is like a symbol of this like moment of her being, I think embarrassed is the word, something like that.
Yeah, I get that she's like, oh no,
humility.
what have I done?
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah. It's interesting. It's not
being pulled back from an edge, kind of.
It's her gauntlet moment.
Yeah, well, yeah, very recognizable kind of relationship from Xena, that sense of Gabrielle holding Xena back. I mean, we understand why the writers have chosen to connect Kali and Xena. You definitely see a certain similarity in this kind of unbridled female energy. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like, Xena doesn't speak while she's being Kali, but she just does the war cry, and that does seem kind of correct in that context.
Ooh, when I was Googling all this stuff, I found pictures of Heidi Klum dressed as Kali at her, like, one of her Halloween bashes, and it was like,
God.
oh man.
Did she have multiple arms?
Uproar.
A lot of arms.
Boy.
Yeah, but there was one of the I read like this article about it where actually the person who was speaking, a guy named Rajan Zed, who is an Indo-American statesman, commented on it, and it was kind of the opposite of the controversy mentioned at the beginning of this episode, where just talking about like a person going to a Halloween bash, or like we've said before, like people going to Coachella with bindis on and stuff. He said, Hindus welcome Hollywood and other entertainment industries to immerse themselves in Hinduism, but they should take it seriously and respectfully and not just use the religion for decoration or to advance their selfish agenda. That's true. And, like, again, I think the show is trying to do that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where how do you say, how successful is the show? It's impossible not to admit that the show is, you know, it's on TV, Universal, it's making people money. Like, it is using Hinduism to tell an episode of its show. Like, apparently Krishna's in the video game, you know, it's hard not to see that kind of merchandising.
Or he's just doing a voice,
Yeah, I think he might be just doing a voice.
Maybe he's just doing a voice. There's always, you know, in TV, a level of, well, yeah, this is a corporate product. Like, you know, this is exploitative, even if they mean well. So it's hard to, like, balance those scales. How well do you mean for it to, like, be okay? When does it become just, I genuinely care about this and want to share it with people, and not, I'm using your religion to make money.
Right.
So Xena arises, reborn as Kali.
And I love that she starts stalking Indrajit. You have this very traditional horror movie scene, except it's Indrajit as the victim,
right,
sort of looking around being like, ooh, something's after me. And they very carefully obscure Xena. There's this one shot that kind of pans across and you see Indrajit and he's framed by all these columns, and then you just pass over one column and see that right in the shadows is Xena, and you just get a glimpse of her, and the way it's lit, you can barely see her, but you know she's there. And she has all those arms, and often in these shots where she's in the shadow, she looks like a spider, because you're just like...
Yes, I feel like you can't really see the arms, or at least I block them out.
It's just like this big, bulky shape.
No,
Fear's like,
I
no
don't
bulk.
want them, no arms. Oh, there's just so many arms when they fight, you guys. I don't know. I guess I'm not really a fan of this fight whatsoever.
I think it's imaginative.
It's imaginative,
yeah.
and that's like one of those things where it's really cool that they did it. And like when Indrajit or Xena flips him over, one of them flips the other one over on the ground, and there's just all these limbs, and you're like, this is really cool because it just feels like that's there. But at the same time, there's just too many arms.
Too many arms.
I can't get over it.
My favorite shot is once they transfer the fight up to the second level, and Indrajit climbs after Xena, and you have this shot like of his arms coming up over the ledge, and like an arm comes up and an arm comes up and an arm comes up, and it's again kind of insect-like.
Yeah.
Like it reminded me, of this like crawling thing.
Oh gosh.
This is another problem, again, is that there is, I think, I'm about to sound like Katie Couric doing the NBC Olympic opening ceremony announcements, where you're like, in the West, this is scary. In
the goblins.
East.
Everybody hates goblins
but
in the West.
I do think that, like, the kind of perception of Kali as a goddess is this scary figure. And that may have a lot to do with perhaps one of the lovely racist classics of American cinema, everyone's favorite, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which does feature...
Coin for the Temple of Doom.
Kali.
Oh, now that you throw coins in and it hits the...
Oh no.
Oh no, it doesn't make any...
It doesn't make the good sound.
So that's just another layer.
I didn't know that she was in that. Because I have
Well,
only
it's
seen
like a
Crystal Skull.
We've discussed... Vera has still only seen Crystal Skull.
Always.
The bad guys in Temple of Doom worship Kali. That's
Yes. It's been a while since I've seen it.
I don't really remember that part except like the guy who pulls out people's hearts.
Mm-hmm.
That always
well,
scared
there's
me
the
as a
black
kid.
sleep of Kali Ma or whatever it's called, black sleep or whatever, and it makes them paralyzed. And then they like
vaguely.
Yeah, that
Okay.
movie from beginning to end is
Bad.
a nonstop.
Yeah, if you take your problematic chart of that movie, you're gonna have a lot of coins to give to charity by the end.
But yes, this cultural appropriation just all over the place in the Hollywood. Just we need to do better.
So one of my favorite moments in this fight with Xena and Indrajit is where throughout the whole thing she's like struggling to take out that dagger from her palm.
Right, it's still there.
She can't.
I guess she
She pushes
regrew
it
the
in
arm. Yeah.
further.
Because she can't take it out, so
Yeah.
she decides to, you know what, I'm going to push it
Because then it can be a weapon.
Yeah.
Because then you have a nice sharp edge coming out.
Right. So then she proceeds to stab him in his cheek.
This is so
with
cool because
it.
she backhands him. You know, it's such a like bitch fight move. But because she has a giant fucking blade coming out of her
Yeah.
backhand, it just like sticks in his cheek, and you're like, ah.
That was a cool move.
I also love when she bites his hand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm always up for biting. That's always fun. Again, though, very violent. Like blood rolling down his hand. Like
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
the most violent part, of course, is the end of this fight where Xena beheads him. So he is dead.
And his head kind of rolls right into the camera lens and blacks out the scene. And then when you resume it, you have Xena restored.
With 2 arms.
Just with 2.
Thank goodness.
Now, did you mention that time that he like cuts her back, the back of her legs? That's the least favorite part of
Ooh,
that.
yeah, like the Achilles tendon.
I hate
Whoa,
that part. It's like
I
above,
missed that.
It's like above the Achilles tendon.
Oh,
It's like,
man.
oh, it's awful and I hate
He kind of
it.
knocks her off her feet by
Oh my goodness.
cutting at the back of her
Yikes.
foot.
I didn't realize he actually
Well,
cut her.
but
I don't know.
before-
I mean, all you see is her falling down.
Okay.
Before I forget, and now that we have Xena restored to her Xena self, if you want to listen to a really good podcast about Kali, I highly recommend Spirits podcast, which is a really great. It's 2 women talking about all sorts of folklore and mythology and such, and they have a whole episode on Kali. That's really great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Check that out.
So Hanuman
Who
says,
ran in towards
yeah,
the end
right.
of this fight. I don't know where he's been this
Yeah.
whole time.
Yeah, he like hit a demon, right? And that was like it.
And that was it.
Yeah.
'Cause somebody needed to. We have the pacifists.
Sure.
So.
He goes, "Thank you, Krishna," and then they just leave.
And that's weird if Hanuman is Krishna.
Right.
Right, I don't,
It's like,
I don't
somebody
think
thank me.
I just think it was weird staging.
So, okay, now we have Gabs, Hanuman, and Eli going for a walk.
Right. It's and all of his local followers are there.
Yeah.
Some more white savior for the road.
Gabrielle is really sad because she failed her first test very badly
very
and
fast.
very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Eli tells her that the way of love is hard and it may not be right for her.
That sounded a little like a prescription drug commercial. The way of love has many side effects, and it may not be right for you.
If you choose to follow it, follow it with all your
Consult
heart.
a doctor first.
You'll fail more than once, but don't give up hope. In the end, we'll redeem the world.
That's nice.
That's a big order.
And also redeem the world. Redemption, obviously big word, weighted
Absolutely,
word for
very
this
weighted.
show.
Yes.
We have the benefit of hindsight. We know that he is right about this. I mean, not to spoil anybody, but I like that his final words to Gabrielle leave a little bit of room for doubt. Like, I'm encouraging you on this path, but no, it may not be your path.
Mm-hmm. So Eli is ready to go get the boat he was going to get before, and he says that he's going to go take his message to his own people because they'll be the most receptive. Mm-hmm. That fits in with the kind of localism situation
That's
that
true.
the show has going on.
But it also feels kind of dismissive to the
Yes, it
Indian
does.
people who he's here helping. So
And they
Well, on the other
they
hand,
seemed
wait a
also
second. On the other hand,
receptive.
it's
they
good.
seem plenty receptive.
But
yeah.
isn't it better that
episode.
he's not a missionary? He's like leaving them to their own religion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But, like, you know, that's why this whole idea of first meeting Eli in India is a bit bizarre as a choice because it does in the end leave you with a lot of questions like, well, why was he here at all if his people are the most receptive?
I have a good quote while you're talking about that and missionaries and such and the multiplicity of religions in this program. There's this quote by a Hindu philosopher named Sri Ramakrishna who expressed the essence of pluralism by comparing the various world religions to separate paths up the same mountain. Every path has the same destination, and circling the mountain to bring others around to one's own path is not climbing.
I like that a lot.
That's from the plurality article, the gods or not one that I referenced earlier.
Yeah, that's a lot like the metaphor here about the rivers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting.
It reminded me
'cause
exactly
it
of that.
started with the waters coming down the mountain to the rivers.
Everybody has a way. Everybody has a religion.
Yeah, let's
a
talk.
belief system.
Let's talk about that Xena and Gab's scene because it's just so beautiful. Bye to Eli.
Bye, Eli. See you soon, buddy.
See you later.
Yeah, Gabrielle stands and, looks at the river and makes a decision. She throws her staff right in.
That staff, man.
It's seen some shit.
We've been with this staff for what feels like years.
Yeah, well, there it goes in the river.
So there's this shot of Xena off on the bank, watching her do this, and I just think that these shots of Xena are stunning. She looks so beautiful, and the expression on her face is also just perfect.
Yeah. I wrote shock and loss. She feels like she's being left behind, but also she's glad that Gabrielle's figured this hard thing out.
Right. She goes, so it's the way of love for you, huh?
And Gab says, yours is the way of the warrior. I think I've always known that.
Yeah.
Xena says, and I've always known that it was wrong for you. I'm sorry I took you so far from your truth.
Everybody's heart just broke into a million pieces, and then it's followed up by Gabrielle and Pound in soft voice, don't be sorry. This is so...
Don't forget the out-of-frame hand-touching that's happening that
Oh my gosh. It is heartbreaking. It really is. And then then she goes on to tell Xena that she couldn't have understood the power of selfless love if it wasn't for our friendship. Again, selfless love, another phrase that should be paid attention to, I think.
Definitely.
But it's just, oh my God, these two. Now Xena wants to have her go off with Eli.
Right.
And
trying
which she
to
has done
part ways with her again.
several times.
Najara. Yeah.
And Gabrielle's just like, no, you and I stay together. And it's sort of, again, here, bringing it back to that quote, that, like, Xena's like, we're, like, we're going in opposite directions. And then Gabrielle says the stuff about all rivers running to the sea, which is our bookend for the, funny rivers stuff at the beginning. We're now all heartbroken and miserable, but everything's lovely and everyone looks nice, and even Gabrielle with her hair, which I'm used to now.
Hand touching.
Yeah, all the hand touching.
So a few things about the symbolism of this scene. Gabrielle throwing the staff into the river made me think of her throwing the ring into the sea at the end of When in Rome, and that in its turn made us think of Xena throwing the rock into the pond to create that metaphor, which was the pond is her, the rock is violence, it's always in there. I love that we're returning to that imagery as Gabrielle gives up violence, as Gabrielle tries to remove that rock from her pool.
Yeah.
And then it's a joke.
And then it's a joke. Thank you for not mentioning dams.
But it's like not a joke.
It's not
it's
a joke.
very serious.
It's
She's like, you're welcome. Have it. I love this scene, you guys.
It's really amazing. And I know that this is very controversial, that a lot of fans at the time were frustrated with Gabrielle for giving up her staff, for, kind of opting out of, being Xena's comrade in arms,
Yeah.
which feels like the natural place for her in this show. So you're like, what are you doing? You're literally breaking the framework of this show. But at the same time, I find it really moving that she's circling, she's getting rid of the staff. She's becoming that Gabrielle in some ways who, we first met, who solved problems by talking through them, who was a pacifist. But there she was a pacifist, not really by choice. She just was one because by circumstance.
She didn't know how to fight.
Yeah, she didn't know how to fight. She was this little village girl who just, loved what she saw and wanted to follow it wherever it went, it being Xena. And I think it's cool that because she's traveled with Xena, it allows her to actually make that as a choice. Now she can choose that life that she felt she hadn't chose for herself before. Not that what she's doing now is the same as what she was doing in Potadia, but this idea of Gabrielle, who isn't a warrior.
It's just, it's going to be hard because, you can't really have Xena without violence, and especially not when she's embraced her way, which is the way of the warrior now. So it's going to be rough for sweet pacifist Gabs.
On the way of love.
Yeah. Well, I love the last shot being that of the staff leaving frame.
We're going to miss that staff.
Yeah, well, yes.
Let me tell you, Gabs and that staff, OTP.
So that's the end of the episode.
Yep.
We did it.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I actually had a few coins left.
No
Can you
way.
believe
Just
that?
put it in
Just
for
put him in.
Just put 'em in.
Collie.
Put it in for us.
Yeah.
Just to,
Trying to talk about this stuff like we know what
Trying.
we're talking about.
Yes, very difficult.
There we go.
Goodbye, India.
Woo! Thank you,
Wow.
India.
Thank you, India.
Yeah, so that was an episode that was very intense and challenging and problematic and had all kinds of great ideas in it.
I love it. I do. I acknowledge its problems, but I do find it one of the most memorable episodes of the show. I think it's just so cool. In the end, that's my predominant feeling is this is cool. I like watching this. When Hanuman's on screen, I'm like, this guy's cool. I want to know more about him. I want to know more about Rama.
Dude, they never said goodbye to him.
Yeah, they just leave him.
He just went away.
Yeah, poor Hanuman. I think if their goal was to make someone who doesn't really know very much about Hinduism go, wow, I'd like to know more. I feel they've succeeded. They've made this world come alive via the power of their filmmaking. And I think that is absolutely an achievement, even if it's one that comes with a whole world of trouble.
Yeah, a universe of trouble. Next week, we're going to go to the theater.
Get your popcorn ready. Okay, anything else? Is there...
Nah,
we're
that's
good.
enough.
I think it's been 5 hours, so...
So shall we say a farewell to arms?
Oh
Stop.
my god!
You ran out of coins for us.
That was a perfect cap to sum up.
We're on the internet.
Yeah,
Xena
follow
Warrior
us
Podcast.
on the things.
XenaWarriorPodcast.com. You can listen to episodes there and also subscribe on Apple Podcasts, where it would be really super awesome if you left us a rating or even a review. Always helpful. We are doing a lot of fun stuff on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Xena Warrior Podcast. So you can see all of the, different levels of things that you can get and do over there. And then follow us on all of the social media for more commentary at Xena Warrior Pod on Twitter and Xena Warrior Podcast on Facebook and Tumblr. Instagram. All the things. Yeah. And then, start putting your cues together because we're getting to the end of the season.
All right. Yeah, that means mailbag.
And I'm sure people will have a lot to say about the India arc. So definitely start thinking of them. That's all the things.
The power.
The passion.
The podcast.